Reader Mail
for the month of August.
Hello and welcome to Triangle Squared, a PlayStation podcast. I'm your host, Brett Beck, and alongside me, Mr.
Saul Bridges, bringing you Lucky August.
Hello and welcome to Triangle Squared.
Let me turn that down. Sorry for the echo.
All right, Saul. Did you give us our lucky? You said what? You said episode August.
Episode August. Or no, I said Lucky August.
Lucky August Reader Mail.
We are doing this thing a little bit differently, as you guys can tell by the setup. We are live streaming on Twitch. I think we're going to start doing some more live streaming and such. For stuff like this, though, we won't be interacting a whole lot with anybody watching until after. We'll hang around for a couple minutes just to interact with everybody and hang out. But and we're just going to kind of keep it structured, kind of fairly professional, similar to the regular episodes where our live streams are a little bit more off the limits of everything. And Brett, you do want to go ahead and change us to talk shows real quick instead of Death Gambit.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, we did stream Death Gambit, and you guys can see that. We just, with this being uploaded on Friday, for those that aren't watching live right now, you guys can see that on our channel. We had some good fun and some fun chat interaction. And like we said, we definitely are going to be streaming a little bit more and trying to figure out ways to work that into episodes. So if you have any questions or anything of that nature, let us know, because we are interested in helping out and taking advice and stuff from you guys if y'all want to see certain things and see live streams. We have a couple things planned here real soon. This episode's going to go up on Friday. Tomorrow, Saturday, it should be around 3:30 Central Time, maybe 4. We're going to be doing a showdown on Twitch where me and Brett are going to compete in 3 games: Destiny 2, Gran Turismo, and Injustice 2. Kind of a game from every genre, and one of our loyal fans has promised us a Vita for the winner, and that's going to be kind of fun, and we thought you guys may like that. So we're going to be having a good old time, and so
there we go.
It may just be a little bit different, and I think Brett finally got us changed over on the Twitch side. But
yep. So if you are joining us for the first time for some reason when you're watching this either on Twitch with us, or if you're watching us on other YouTube or whatever, then we are usually posting a new episode every Monday at 10 a.m. PST and 12 p.m. CST. Our normal episodes are us covering all the things from the weekly news, things that come out game-wise, and of course our thoughts on different topics that rotate out, sometimes from users, different listeners who suggest things that we like so much that we want to make it into a topic, or things that we see in the news that we'd like to talk about. And from there, we... upload to, we're streaming World then. So like we said, we're not going to be doing a whole lot. This is going to be reader mail, so we're not going to do a lot of interacting, except for after we get through. We'll kind of sparse in here and there and respond with certain things possibly, but we're going to kind of try and keep it structured. Anyway, you can only find us on YouTube. If you like what we're doing over there, give us a subscribe, hit the little bell. You'll see our new episodes as they come out every Monday at the bare minimum with our normal show. If you want to find us on podcast services, you can do so there. If you listen to us on iTunes, consider giving us a review. Helps people see what we're about, see if we're good or not, and of course helps people find us a little bit better, and it gives us an idea of what you like about the show and what you don't like. I actually need to go check on those. It's been a while since I've checked on them. Saul, they can also find us on Twitter, right?
They sure can, over at Triangle SQRD. We often do reader mail questions that you're guys are going to see here, in which Wednesdays and Fridays we post a question, or not a question, but a tweet, and you guys can respond with your questions, and we answer 3 from Twitter every episode and 1 from Facebook currently. We may be changing that around a little bit soon with maybe 2 from Facebook, 2 from Twitter, and we'll kind of change that up in a little bit. But then, of course, monthly, the first Friday of every single month, you guys will see us here, and we'll be talking and hanging out, answering all the questions that we did not get to answer on the show. So anytime you guys ask us a question on Twitter, or anything like that, we, of course, we'll never forget it. We put it in a file, and we save them for days like today, where we'll always answer all of them.
Yeah, my computer's being a punk. I don't know if it's that or if it's our Wi-Fi, but thankfully it looks like we're streaming all right. So that's all we really need to be able to do from there. Like we said, this is where we take all of our reader mails and put them together. So I was a little bit in and out there because I'm trying to figure out my computer. I don't know if you covered that. But
yeah,
we're going to hop into our reader mail questions. These are all the ones we didn't get to in our normal episodes. If you If you watch our normal episodes and keep up with us on Twitter or on Facebook in our newly minted Facebook group, Triangle Square to PlayStation Podcast, you can find us over there. If you like a little bit more controlled conversation, you can also find us in our Discord. I don't know if Saul mentioned that or not.
Oh, no, I didn't. We always put the link for our Discord in the pinned tweet on our Twitter and in the description of our videos on YouTube.
Yep.
So you guys can
So anyway, there
fun.
are ways for you to get reader mail questions to us, and there's a chance that we'll read them live We'll read them while we're recording the episodes, which will occasionally be done live, and then other times we'll just compile them into here. So Saul, let's start with the first one. Mr. El Tabib, long time, always gives us good questions. It says, "Hey guys, hope all is well. What do you think about idle animations? Any favorites? Keep up the excellent work." Thanks for the question. I actually love this one. I remember when you initially asked it, and I was wanting to. I'm curious what Saul's are, because I think anybody who's heard me talk about games that I love would probably be able to guess that mine. Most of mine come from Crash Bandicoot. Crash Bandicoot 1 through 3 have got great idle animations. The way that the games end up working that into where it's basically set up to. Oh man, this is going all sorts of weird. Yeah. Anyway, the way that the game does that is it's like you have little parts of. He'll be standing there for long enough, and he'll start doing a little dance or something. And the famous dance where he does a little leg shake, and then like turns around and looks at you. I love that. There's one where he'll yo-yo, and he'll be yo-yoing around, and then eventually he'll lose control of it, and it'll spin up around him. I love that one. There's one where he throws up a Wumpa in the air, and he's like waits forever, and then eventually it's like he forgets about it, and it comes down and splats on his face.
I remember that one.
Great,
and
actually
fantastic.
Yeah, and I want to just because the game lends itself so well to it. The other part of that is death animations. And I think Crash Bandicoot has some of my favorite death animations
whether it's getting
too.
Squashed or frozen to death.
Getting squashed and being a little pancake is funny. Falling into a hole and just your shoes flying out. Getting hit by running into a crab and having a little angel crash and go up. It's great. I mean, that game has got. That game, it was a really interesting interview that they did with the original creators for the game, but they were talking about like their inspiration was cartoons, and that makes a ton of sense because that show, it makes me think of all the stuff they used to do back in like Looney Tunes and stuff like that, all the over-the-top animations for small things that happen, but it's super memorable and fun, and I love that. Saul, what are yours?
Ocarina of Time is good for sure. Just the way Link will stand there every now and then and kind of whip out the sword, just kind of slash it around, and it just kind of examines his out areas. Is pretty cool too.
Sure.
I do like Grand Theft Auto 5. It's not like up there with like favorites or anything, but I definitely have to give a nod to GTA 5. Just every now and then you'll be standing around and it'll go to first person, and you'll be looking around and stuff, and then you'll just have people come by saying stuff to you, and it could be quite hilarious. But yeah, Ocarina of Time, Wind Waker has some good ones too. So those are up there real for sure with me. I don't really pay a lot of attention to a lot of idle movements of any kind. And I actually now with this question will start paying more attention to them because who knows what I'm missing in light of
I think
those movements.
It's interesting the way that both of us play games. I think every now and then I see you leave your game up while you do something else, and I do every now and then. But there's a lot of games there. I mean, I love the animation. I mean, I'm trying to think. I don't remember there being any excessive idle animations in Little Big Planet, but the animations that you can control yourself are great.
Right.
And that's a game that gives you control of animations in a very different way than just like, well, yeah, of course, if you run, you're going to run. But you know what I love about Little Big Planet? Do you ever play it enough to know that like you can make your character, the directional pad was like your mood, so you could be happy, sad, crying, like, and there was 3 levels of each one.
No, I guess I did.
It's incredibly fun. And then of course, being able to control your arms means that you can really just set up how you want your character to look in the moment, and like you can slap each other. It makes those games really fun, and it's one of those things where animations really help sell something, and I love animation. So it's a great question. I like that one a lot.
It is, that's one that makes you think out of the box.
Yep.
He does have another one though, real quick, and we anytime we post a Twitter message about this, that he's always one of the ones that always asks us the great questions, and I really like this one. He says, in light of Cyberpunk 2077 recently showing at E3 and talk about the body augmentation as a level up in the game, if you are able to augment only one body part, which one would you do? Would you do it at all?
And of course, he says, thanks, have a great one, as El Chabib always ends a message with. So thank you, El Chabib, for the kind words, as always. So, Brett, if you could augment one part of your body, what would you do?
Man, that's a really hard question to answer, because I feel like anytime you go with one, you'll think of a better reason for another one. I'm trying to think because, I think some people are like, I want to be super strong in one arm, or I want to be,
but one
or
arm
something like that.
Like, one arm to me is better than one leg.
Oh,
I feel like one leg's too awkward.
Well, maybe, but what if, like, I guess I think about it like you can run faster so you can get out of crazy situations and stuff like that.
But
There's that.
You? Because I don't think your other leg can carry the momentum.
I don't know. I mean, when you think about what running is, I mean, yeah, you may be right. You may trip over yourself if you do that.
I think you would.
Maybe. That's a good point.
Imagine one of your legs is just tiny and the other one's big, and try to run with like a toothpick versus just regular.
I could see that. If I was actually, the more I think about it, and it's a mixture between, you always think about like what senses would you want to keep around, and I'm going that directly, that route. It's always like a really big, you say that. It's like you think about senses in such a weird way, but going more towards the ones that aren't so physically based, in terms of like that you touch and you can feel and you go, okay, this is what this is. It's always like, would you rather be blind or would you rather be deaf? Like deaf. If you some reason had to choose that this is going to happen to you, and that's a hard question to answer, because without eyes I couldn't play video games, which we obviously love.
Right. But without sound,
without ears, I couldn't listen to music. I couldn't hear the sound effects of a game. I couldn't hear the audio design and the great, like when we're playing Death's Gambit, we're talking about how great the original soundtrack is. Those are things that you would miss over.
Yeah.
But which one matters more? Like,
video games for sure is something that like you have to sacrifice soundtrack, because you wouldn't be able to play video games blind that well. I know there are some there is some ways you can get around it and such with certain games. That are made specifically.
It's interesting, but I'm trying to think of, if you just take it out of the gaming thing. Like if I had to think of one thing, I think I would rather either. I'm trying to choose between an eye or an ear, because like one of the good things about having an augmented ear is that you would never have to worry about going deaf. Like you have an augmented ear.
Yeah, I guess
no matter
so.
what you do, you wouldn't go deaf. You know what I mean?
Well,
it's like you have the ability.
Because
like me and Blaze, when you're doing music stuff and like really getting into it, and like we were doing for like a full year, a little bit more. We were practicing multiple times a week and recording and going out to the shop and not wearing any ear protection, just being super loud, because of course that's what's going to happen. You have drums right beside you. You're cranking the guitar so you can get over the drums a little bit, so we can all hear each other. We have a vocal microphone set up. We're yelling, and then we go to concerts sometimes. And like me and Blaze have had a much more conscious effort lately, where we're like, all right, we need to wear hearing protection.
Right.
Like the last concert we went to, I was like, we're going to have earplugs and make sure we have them, and it made the experience better because I didn't feel so bad when I left. Right? Normally I'm like, that was fun, but headache,
ringing ears.
Yeah, so
it's not fun.
I have one of those things. I'm a little like worried about going deaf, because like I deal with my grandpa who can't hear for crap.
Yeah,
and I'm like, oh man, I really don't want that to ever be the problem. But at the same time, going blind would be awful. And again, I guess would I want to see with just one eye if something happened to my other one? It's a weird thing. Though, but I'm trying to think of, when they're augmented, you're like, your limitations are gone, right?
Right. I was like, is it limitless or not, though?
Then you're going to think outside of that. Well, you have the ability to not lose it necessarily. But what about what it adds if you just have both? Having one eye that can like super zoom in on something and like read something crazy from far away, or keep up with something from far away. But it'd feel like, but it also, the thing is, I don't know that I'd want to feel like I'm invading someone's privacy like that. But at the same time, if I can hear, then it's like you're eavesdropping from anywhere. But being able to hear,
no, I'm gonna say hearing.
Cool.
Yeah, now that you said that, hearing is definitely no go for me, because ignorance is bliss. You don't want to hear what everybody's talking about around you.
You have an augmented ear, and suddenly you can hear the whispers of the Illuminati. I mean,
also just imagine what an augmented ear looks like.
I mean, I imagine you wouldn't have an augmented ear, you'd have an augmented cochlear implant or something like that.
No, I'm thinking it would actually be like, it would be an implant, of course, but your ear would be all metal.
I mean, that may be cool.
Yeah, I would go arm.
Hard to say.
Because let me think about it. If you need to lift like up a car, and you have that one arm that can do it, you don't need both arms at that point. You just lift up one, just like you lift up a bag of groceries. If you get into a fight, you don't need both arms.
You know the harder part of all this is everybody says one body part. One body part doesn't do anything. If you have an arm that's okay, so let's just say that technically this is one body part, right?
Think of Winter Soldier.
Yeah, but it's not. But that's an entire arm. That's not one body part. That's there's a bunch of stuff going on. That's why I'm saying it's a hard question to answer.
That's what I'm talking about. If I said arm, I'm talking about from shoulder cuff down to hand.
Okay, well then what I'm getting at is like what's causing when you have a whole body of it, it makes sense. But if you just have an arm that's super strength, what's causing you the ability to be able to lift this up?
It's augmented.
Every bit of
I'm sure
this.
there's pistons in there that do that or something.
Okay, so but you're talking about being able to lift up a car. Well, this arm is attached to my body. Can my arm, like where the thing is attached to my body, can it support the weight of that car?
This is a futuristic setting.
These are what I'm saying. These are hard
I'm
questions.
sure it could.
I don't know. Arm's obviously a good answer. I'm not. Yeah. I'm just saying it's
like the leg thing again. It's like, is it going to imbalance you badly, or is it not going to worry about it? Like,
I'm just saying, like, it's where your super arm is really useful. Like, you have things that obviously, like, okay, you could throw a football better than anybody because that's not going to put extra stress on you in a weird way. But like the parts where it'd be most cool to use, like I say, lifting a car up or saving someone from like a crazy crap happen, like a building's falling over and you catch a gigantic concrete thing. Well, your body's still underneath that arm. It doesn't work that way.
Something like that also, like pure concrete slab, yeah, but a building is just gonna fall.
But you see people do that all the time. I mean, like the Winter Soldier's a perfect example. Like there's still a body behind there.
Yeah, I know, but if you imagine something like that.
Good question and good answer. Question. I think arm's a good answer, but I'd want to go with something that's more useful outside of physicality, and that's where I think like an ear would be cool because, like, can you imagine hearing things in music that no one's ever heard?
I don't want that power. Like, I don't want to be able to hear stuff that it's not supposed to be heard.
I don't know.
If it's supposed to be heard, then you would know. You would hear it. But if it wasn't,
I would be cool though because augmented eye would give you the ability to record memories that like you're really sitting there and you're like, okay.
That's what makes memory so good, though, right? Is you
that you can remember them differently than what they actually were.
Yeah, the rose tinted glasses.
That's true.
So, but that's a fantastic question. Don't you be like that question?
It's a question that can go so deep in questioning.
Why don't you pick another one? Because we do have a couple more from LGB, but we're gonna
let's do something else. Mr. Dan Grubbs says, I think it's supposed to be Groobs, by the way. I don't know if I remember the way he did his things, but that's okay. What game character could you see yourself becoming good friends with if you were able to meet them, and why?
We've answered this question before.
Oh, have we?
Yeah. We basically, it was in the form of a side quick, but we kind of answered it like, who would be the most fun to hang out with?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, of course, when you think about, because like, well, it's like what sidekick? So I was actually kind of keeping it to sidekicks. So, but Nathan Drake seems like he'd be super funny. I would like his attitude with everything, so I think I'd like him. That seems like a pretty good answer.
I did spell his name right, by the way. I don't know how to do the fancy U.
Oh
well.
Yeah.
Let's ignore the last name now.
No, it doesn't matter. That's not his real last name.
Oh, okay.
That's why he does it.
Okay.
Anyway, it's a nickname for him. Let's see. I think Nathan Drake's a good answer for me. I think I'd like that. He's got a kind of personality I'd like. But then again, you think I think it'd be cool to meet, like, you say that. I think somebody like Sora may be cool. You know?
I'm still going to say with 9S.
Super Tipper.
Yeah, 9S.
9S would be cool too, I think. That's a good one.
See, now...
I feel like I'm louder than you.
This is going to be one of the parts in which I do reference the chat just briefly, because World End says augment the brain. Now, I'm going to assume that's off limits.
Now, yeah, that's what I'm getting at too, because it's also... Because augmenting the brain is the perfect answer, right? Realistically.
Right.
I thought about that too, but I was like, I feel like that's outside of...
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I'm going to stick with 9S.
Hey, guys, am I louder than Saul? I feel like I'm clipping over here more often than he is.
Well, you're just naturally louder than I am.
I know that. Yeah.
So, it's kind of hard to keep up with.
I think I accidentally bumped the volume knob, so if I am, let me know.
But let's see. Next question we have: which gaming genre would you now say is the most popular? Is it still FPS or something else? Thanks to Mr. Sean One Neo, aka No Fate. Now this is a weird question because I don't really think that Battle Royale is considered a genre. I mean, if it isn't, it should be. But Battle Royale definitely right now, and then right behind it is first-person shooters because you still have stuff like Counter-Strike. And it's weird because Call of Duty Black Ops 4 is coming out in just a month, and one of the most popular streamers in the world picked it up and has been playing on stream and talked about how much he loved it. And I don't think a lot of people realize how much these streamers influence buyers. And I think that Call of Duty Black Ops 4 will be on top because of what he's doing right now. I think Call of Duty Black Ops 4 will jump above Fortnite.
Yeah.
That's the whole reason Fortnite got popular. Was because of streamers. That game was out way longer than it was until it got popular.
So like when
on PS4 even.
Well, you're talking about Fortnite, right? Yeah.
Right.
And,
it was out for a couple good months before it became real popular.
Yeah, but it was the gaming mode that they did that caused it. So.
No. I'm talking about the Battle Royale mode was out for a good couple months before it became that popular. Like, as popular as it is now, and it was mainly not only because it was free, but because a lot of the popular Twitch streamers that everybody goes and watches.
Sure.
Yeah, we picked it up.
And you got to think about the genre, because of the landscape we're in for gaming now, the genre that is prevailing on Twitch tends to be the genre that prevails in general. And I think so. Right now, I think it's obvious to say that first-person shooters are still doing really well.
Oh yeah,
obviously, but I think
number 2 for sure.
I think it obviously comes down to being third-person shooters right now, and that's also because of if you think about all the games. Third-person shooters is hard to say, but realistically, third-person shooters would be the way to say, because a lot of games fall into third-person shooter anyway. I mean, if you really think about it, Uncharted is third-person action adventure, but there's a lot of shooting mechanics in it.
I wouldn't really call that popular right now, though. I wouldn't call any of these popular right now.
Man, I say they are, but I mean, at the same time, it's getting out of... It's third-person that involves some form of shooting, because Horizon is technically that. Tomb Raider's technically that.
He's saying what is the most popular, though.
That's what I'm saying. I
wouldn't consider
I think
those.
that if I had to say a genre, man, I mean, okay. Really, the
you
genre...
could say action shooter.
It gets hard because, in a way, I want to say RPGs, because everything has RPGs in it, like RPG elements in it now, but it's not a full genre, so that's why I don't want to necessarily say that. I don't know. I feel like... So what was your answer?
I was going to say, if Battle Royale is considered a genre, Battle Royale...
If we're going to give it a genre, then Battle Royale.
Yeah, and then the first-person shooters are right behind it.
But that's why I say Battle Royale is still part of a genre, because all the Battle Royale games are technically third-person shooters, right? But until Call of Duty comes with their version of it.
PUBG is both.
PUBG can be both. You're right.
H1Z1 is both. So realistically, the only major one, Fear the Wolves, is both. Or Fear the Wolves, I think, is only first-person. I might be wrong on that. But only one that's not really is Fortnite at this point.
I see.
So
we're gonna inject a couple of questions from this is actually, because this is one of the cooler ways of doing it live. We're not just gonna talk a bunch back and forth, but we'll acknowledge some things. So one thing we'll do is we'll inject a question in here from the Stoner. It says, do you guys think Naughty Dog games will ever come out with Jack 4, since they are done with Uncharted series and almost done with The Last of Us 2?
No.
I don't know. I feel like it's a no because of Neil. I don't feel like
it's 100% because of Neil.
I think it's not grounded enough to be what Neil wants to work with, which is where some of my fear about them going towards a sci-fi would be, is if he'd want to go that far away. But it's hard to say, because I mean, I don't know. I feel like you could make it incredibly grounded, but it's still going to be set in a world that's... I guess by doing a Jack 4, you'd risk alienating the people who like the previous ones by changing it too much. So if it was going to go to somebody, I'd almost think it needs to go away from Naughty Dog and to a developer that wants more to carry on.
Vicarious Visions?
Maybe. I was thinking like maybe even Sanzaru Games, but because
I could kind of see that.
They handle the Sly Cooper series so well, and it's like this. I don't think that
Sly 3 was made by them, right?
No, Sly 4 was.
4,
Sly
that's
3,
right.
1, 2, and 3 were all Sucker Punch. But here's the thing. Sucker Punch have moved away from that. I think if you would have tried pulling Sucker Punch off of Infamous 2, trying to go directly back into Sly 4, I don't think it would have worked as well. Whereas when you have people who are dedicated to what Sly was and they're trying to find a way to iterate upon that but keep it true to its spirit, it's just the focus of the developers shift around in time. So.
And it may be because I didn't grow up close to Sly Cooper. I didn't grow up with him at all, actually. I didn't get into Sly Cooper games until I was a teenager.
Now, this is interesting. Go ahead, sorry.
But yeah, I was going to say that the way they took over 4, it was such a seamless, job well done, in my opinion, that you didn't even realize it wasn't Sucker Punch.
Exactly. Most
that's
people,
how they did it.
Yeah, if you don't follow devs, that's exactly.
And that's how Jack 4 should be.
Yeah. This is interesting because I want to ask him real quick. World, did Naughty Dog actually specifically say their next game will be a space game? I haven't been able to find anything that actually confirms that. Of course, there's been rumors over and over again, but I'd be interested to see that. And if you have an article, if you wouldn't mind sending it to me, I'd like to read about that.
Sure. So while we wait on that, we're gonna have the next question, and it's thoughts on VOGT Roberts taking Metal Gear to the big screen. Dreamcasting. Can it be the next great video game film? P.S. I'll defend the first Mortal Kombat movie till death. And that's from our boy Mikey. Casting. Me, and I think I've told you this. Me and Joe have sat around for hours trying to cast the perfect Metal Gear Solid movie.
I did not know this.
It's not possible. It's just not. Every time, no matter what, there's always a downfall because obviously you want to get. Oh man, I'm having a blank.
David Hayter.
David Hayter, Snake.
I had a feeling.
But have you seen him lately?
No.
No way can that guy play Snake right now.
Is the way he is overweight?
Looking. A little overweight. His hair is kind of gone. Yeah, he's kind of hit that point to where. Like, it would take, like, do you remember 4?
Well, but where are you doing Metal Gear Solid at? You know?
I mean, even then, though, it's like, he doesn't look nothing like old Snake. If anything, you played 4, so you remember him dressing up as Snake, live action in the game. It worked well.
Yeah.
So back then, David Hayter was the perfect answer. Now, I'm going to say John Krasinski. John Krasinski being Snake. No.
Oh my word.
The perfect casting for that game is going to be rough. Like,
Keanu Reeves as Snake, Sankoff says. Actually, that's not a bad answer. That's really not a bad answer. And if you think about what he's done,
I'm still waiting on Keanu Reeves to be Spike in Cowboy Bebop.
I could see that.
Do you remember
still.
that rumor from like 10 years ago? That was one of the biggest rumors ever.
So real quick, World Ends responding to what I asked. He says, Neil said that Naughty Dog wanted to make 3 games. A game inspired by Indiana Jones, which is Uncharted. 2, a zombie game, Walking Dead style, The Last of Us. 3, a space RPG. They made Uncharted and The Last of Us, so that's next. You can find the interview, I think. I'll look into that. That's interesting. Bruce Willis' Snake is what Liam says.
No, you do not.
Here's the thing. Bruce Willis is past the point where I feel like it really matters for him. But the movie's going to be action starified. That's what they keep trying to do with Uncharted, so that's what's going to keep happening.
Yeah.
When you really think about it, it gets hard to really say what is the closest answer. Because, man, that's actually a really...
unflattering picture.
Yeah. But I still see some Snake in him.
No, you definitely can, especially the hair. The hair is the thing that gets him the best. And
it's a hard thing to cast,
if
though,
he
man.
got chiseled and in weight, then yeah, David Hayter and the voice, of course, you cannot forget about that.
Here's the thing. I think of all the things. I think it may translate to the big screen, okay, but I'm curious how you feel about this because you're an even bigger fan.
It wouldn't work. It's a dynamic that.
Well, yeah. When I say it's okay, I think one of the things is that one of the hallmarks of the series is constantly messing with the player's head.
Not only that, it's
by input methods and stuff like that. But how do you do that when that level of interaction is going?
I'm sure they can break some kind of fourth wall like Deadpool does, where they're like, but it's tricky. But even more so than that is the outrageous nature of the series.
Sure.
Where's Johnny going to be at crapping his pants every 5 minutes like he was in 4?
Well, he'd be the comedic relief, right? I mean,
right. But then
if you think about their role in the movie,
right? But I'm trying to say, like, can you imagine somebody doing that in what you would think is a live action movie? It's one of those Hideo things that just doesn't translate well to like full screen.
To live action.
Yeah.
So here, what would you think? Because you have things like that, but what would you think about a animated feature film?
No, you mean like hand drawn or CGI? Because hand drawn, yeah. CGI, no.
Well, I was thinking CGI, kind of like what they did with the Resident Evil series that they've done.
Nope.
Because I think what you could basically do is you could easily replicate the style of the games.
I don't think that you can take your controller from Snake and it'd be good. I don't think that if you Snake, the way that these games are, the way these games just work, in my opinion.
So even a hand animated then or 2D wouldn't look good, right?
Well, you would get away with, you would get a lot. It wouldn't work well, but it'd be a lot better than CGI.
Okay.
You would get away from a lot of the obscurities a lot better, I think, when it's animated that way than you do even CGI. Because think about it, and like one of the biggest problems with me in 4 was the long cutscenes in which I was just not playing as Snake. And like that's the thing is that when he's on the big screen, who would you're not controlling him, and that's the fun of these games is controlling him, and that's
part of why I say too, why it's hard to translate.
It's not action
gaming.
games really. Like when you think about it, they're really more slow, methodical games that at least that's how you typically play these games. You don't have to play them that way.
That's how you see most people playing them as. You can go, you can go all out, but it's rare that you'd want to go that route.
But but we sat around and talked for hours upon casting until we just kind of agreed that there's not really a strong, suitable cast that could carry that movie and make it watchable for us. So I don't want to see it, but David Hayter would have to be the position for Snake. Like there's nobody else.
What about Kiefer Sutherland? I hope they really don't do that, man.
No.
I really hope they don't do that.
I'm trying to think. Like we literally worked it all out. I'm trying to think who played Ocelot, who played Eva. We had it all worked out.
Man, it's hard to think about who you'd want to do those things because a lot of them too are very stylized characters, and like I say, it's the problem with trying to take something you've always known as a game and make it into a movie.
Yeah,
you care too much about the way you view the characters, whereas in the games when they keep getting better graphics and changing the art style, they are still obviously drawn from the same character, and you feel like you can see the through line. But when you do that to a movie, that through line disappears.
Right.
When you go to live action with something that has such stylized characters. And it's really hard to think. It's the problem why I think Uncharted's one of the only things that could really do it. If you keep a small cast, because Uncharted games are already good about doing that. Good 4 or 5 people. But the Metal Gear Solid games involve a lot of people.
Oh yeah.
And when you're trying to pull that many people in, there's so many more characters you're trying to nail in the head, and it gets harder and harder.
It's Spider-Man 3.
And the reason I say that is it doesn't matter whether it'll be a good movie. What's going to matter is that yes, you are trying to pull these things off in a much smaller runtime, So doing one Metal Gear Solid movie is going to be hard because you're losing time that the game normally gives you to get to know these characters and develop them and develop different relations between different ones and like dynamics between people that make the games pay off so well.
Right.
So that's why it's hard to think about how you could pull that off. Because, you think about Uncharted, even if you remove all the gameplay segments, Uncharted's a long movie. If you made sure that every scene made sense
I'm sure
with
the
it,
first ones are all
4
on top
hours
of
or something.
3 to 4 hours. Yeah,
that's a long movie. It's hard.
So
it's
it's one of the series I don't think will translate well to screen. Even though I would like to see it, I just don't think it would be good.
Liam said, I like this live action. I have a Metal Gear Solid. It's a Metal Gear Solid parody.
Of course
that
it is.
sounds like
now that would work.
Yeah.
And he's probably not in the chat right now because he's sleeping and getting ready for bed. But Richard Rivera wants to know, what are your thoughts about Android Pie? So now we've had it for a good couple weeks. So I think we can speak more better on the matter than that. So I don't like it.
Me either.
I don't like the new messaging system. I don't like the new phone, the layout that the phone looks like when you go to dial for somebody. It looks like a pack of Smarties. And I like the multitasking, or not the multitasking, but the what is that called?
It's the multitasking bar, actually. That's what they call that.
Okay, is it? So, yeah, the multitasking bar and then the notifications with the fingerprint's pretty cool, even though I was just trying to do it and it didn't work. But, yeah, it's kind of cool. I like the way it is now compared to what it was. It's just so much easier to use than to do that. So, that's the only cool thing about it, though.
I dislike it even more. Saw changed to the new home button. I didn't like it because going up to your apps required 2 swipes. Not for me. Didn't like that. I went back to the original. I tried it for a week, and when I realized I was still having problems with it, I was like, yeah, it's not worth it. I'm not transitioning over, and I don't like it enough to want to force myself to switch over to it. I really don't like it at all. I don't like the way that they've changed to the new panel system instead of them being stacked on each other so you could easily get to them by just tapping the top bar of what app you were looking for. Now you have to slide through until the whole slide's available and be able to click it. It's more of a pain in the butt, but my bigger thing is that they're taking away from more of the things that make Android stand different from iOS, and iOS and Android are already closer than they've ever been, and now that line's starting to disappear even more.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's not only Android taking steps towards iOS, it's iOS taking steps towards Android as well. And what's the point of having options if they're too similar? They're not there now, but they're getting there. That multitasking screen is very reminiscent of iPhone. And I don't know if you've seen the iPhone recently, but I can go show you Hannah's and you'd be like, oh my God, it's exactly it.
Yeah, I haven't seen an iPhone. Like, I don't think I've held an iPhone for a real long time.
So I don't know. There's things I do like about it, but as a visual, Android O was way better. Oreo was way better visually to me. I like the way that it looked a lot better. But
why don't you go ahead and pick one?
Let's see. We'll go ahead and hit up LTB's next one. This one sounds fun. What is your general opinion on AI in our lives with the relatively recent Google Duplex demo, Google Assistant calling for a haircut appointment, and talking with a live person and calling a restaurant? Scary? Impressive? Implications for your lives? Implications for gaming? Have a great one. Man, that's a really interesting question. I have not seen the Google Duplex demo. Apparently, I missed out on that.
I don't.
That sounds interesting.
I don't think we could really use it for gaming anyway, really.
Well, possibly, right?
Like, to maybe remind you that a game's coming out or pre-order a game for you even.
Well, I think he's saying, like, how could you take the technology and incorporate it in the game? So we're not talking about just the value. So he's saying AI, right? You could go far enough to go, like, this has already been kind of touched on back on early Xbox when you could put the headset in for Xbox Live and you could actually voice control. I can't remember the name of the game, but you could voice control soldiers that were with you. You could tell them, like, protect my left flank and stuff like that.
You've been able to do that since the original Xbox.
That's what I'm talking about. That's the game I'm talking about. Was it? I thought it was a game before Rainbow Six, but then Rainbow Six did it too.
I don't think there was a game before Rainbow Six that did it. Basically, you could tell breach that or like whatever, or
and they would do it.
Come back to me, and then
and I'm wrong. That's something that I think has been shown that it hasn't been being done well enough. So at that point, they kind of backed off from it, kind of like VR. They were trying VR, and then they just backed off because they realized it wasn't in a point for it. So we may be getting to the point where the technology is where it needs to be to do these things, interestingly. But I don't necessarily know that it would make my gaming experience better.
No, unless it's a game like that works really, really well, and that the speech and word use can be like unlimited. It'd be kind of cool, like where I could talk to NPCs and talk back to me. But I don't think that's what this is, since this is more of a convenience thing. And
and it's not. I mean, so real quick, World in saying that there are not any AI in our lives, only smart bots. AI is one of the most misused words. I think it's hard to say that. I mean, I guess because they don't have their own. I mean, what is what denotes whether it's artificial intelligence, whether it has a consciousness of its own, or because I mean, realistically, artificial intelligence needs to be something that can take in information, process it, and then use it in a way that they do on their own accord.
I think it's an artificial sentient voice.
I don't know. That's why I say AI is a weird thing because I mean. Yeah, you can say there's AI in a video game because you really are giving these characters artificial intelligence to try to take in what's going on in the world, use that information in a way that, well, they'll react in their own accord in a way that would make sense to try and get away from you if you're fighting them or whatever. That exists in games for sure. And I think that you're seeing that now. If that's actually what's going on where it can keep up with when you need a haircut and it can call for you, set an appointment for you, and do all these things for you, it's doing so because you've programmed it to, but it's doing it on its own accord to an extent.
And then he follows up and says it needs to be able to make decisions, not only instructions, not only take instructions.
So would it not? Well, I mean, I don't know. I'd have to see the duplex demo then to see whether I'd want to say this is that. So.
Okay, so yeah, all AI in games is based on instructions.
Well, sure, but it's not. I mean, yes, but it's based on a multitude of instructions, which is exactly what we're doing. I mean, you're making a decision based off the instructions that come into you, or the information, which is all instructions are. Right. It's a slippery slope of balance. I could kind of see that.
But yeah, like I don't really use a whole lot of stuff in terms of like Google Calendar and stuff to keep track of stuff. I don't really think any of this stuff is going to be interesting. Like talking with a live person and calling a restaurant. That's just something I would rather do, I think. Like, I don't think, for me... A
lot of people won't, though. And that's actually a big thing to think about. So, yeah, how does it affect us? I agree. I don't think it'll affect me big.
Well, I mean, when you think about it, is that needed? Like, most...
Well, potentially.
Most big restaurants have apps, and you could do that on the app. It's the same thing.
Some of them, but some of them you can't. So I mean, I guess for the people who are like deathly afraid of, I mean, that's where apps have helped. Like people who are like for some reason socially afraid of calling in a pizza order.
Like, right? Yeah.
Which don't get me wrong, I had that too because for so long it's like, well, I don't know what I'm doing. It's like people who are afraid to call the doctor's office because they don't know what to say or they're worried that they won't know what to say.
And it works really well, but at that point, it's just a program instead of, or it's an application. It's not AI of any kind, and if I'm at work and somebody is getting a prescription and I have a robot call me and ask if it's ready, I'm just going to hang the phone up. It's not a customer. Like, it's one of those things that's just like.
But what if it's an AI that's calling in a prescription?
Worse.
Now, what I'm saying is that at that point, hanging up.
How do I tell them no if we don't have the medication?
I mean, if it's AI, they'd be able to take that information and go, okay.
Yeah, but I don't think we're nowhere near that.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe.
A decade at the very least.
It'd be like, hey, they'd be like, I need this medicine. Then it's no longer available. They take it in and go, okay.
Well, then all the private practices that that barely have enough money to keep the doors open and stuff. Or I wouldn't say barely, but they're family owned private practices. Are they going to afford that kind of stuff? Like, it just all depends.
I mean, yeah,
it's one of those things I'm not really worried about right now at all. Until
the Google Duplex thing is going to show you how easy is it for it to do that. And from a business model, is it easy enough for them to just sell you like a Google Home Mini that can do all these things and connect to a cloud database that handles all the back end stuff for you? Do people want to do that?
Right. At that point, I would take private issues into
privacy.
Mind. Yeah,
sure, absolutely.
So it's one of those things that I'm not really ready for.
Technology, if anything, is showing you that people are willing to sacrifice privacy for ease of use and ease of life.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just one of those weird things.
So I say, if that's actually what's going on and they're making their own decisions, I say it's potential that you could call it a little creepy.
Yeah. It's a future I'm not quite yet ready for, but I'm sure I'll warm up by the time it actually gets here.
Yeah. All right. Choose a question.
Is there another company who could pull you from PlayStation? If so, how are you influenced in what Sony produces that no one else does?
How are you entrenched? He technically misspelled it, but that's what he meant. How are you entrenched in what Sony produces that no one else does?
I guess influenced and entrenched, kind of.
But still, yeah. I mean,
similar meanings. Realistically, for me, it's two things. It's one, the amount of quality exclusives, and two, it is where all my friends are at. If all my friends were on Xbox, I would still have a PlayStation for quality exclusives, but I would mainly be playing on Xbox depending on what I was playing. And it's that easy. I don't like I like Sony as a company. I like New Microsoft as a company. New Microsoft has been doing some pretty cool stuff. It's just kind of one of those things that, like, if everybody I knew was like, let's all pick up Call of Duty or whatever the game may be on the new Xbox instead, I'd be like, okay, I guess I'm buying an Xbox because that right there is alone to get me to buy an Xbox. But then again, there is games like I was gonna say Sirico. It's or Serico, but Serico isn't a good example. Or Sekiro.
I know what you meant.
Knew those didn't sound right. But like, let's say a new FromSoft game comes out exclusive, or like Bloodborne, all these other games that have come out, like Spider-Man, and it's coming out in Detroit, God of War. So this year alone is a good example of like what it is worth to have a PlayStation if you like those kind of games. So I think, honestly, everything right now in gaming is in a good position to stay the way it is. And I mean that in terms of like what the companies are doing. I think that it's smart that Sony's cranking out exclusives. I think it's smart that Microsoft is investing in these subscription plans that give people games they need. And I think it's smart of what Nintendo's doing just to have a handheld out there that can cross-play, have all these cool indie titles. I think it's all like pretty much the perfect gaming paradise. Whether or not I don't agree with all the choices that these console manufacturers make is kind of irrelevant. It's just, if it took me to go to another console full time, it would have to be Friends. But it also have to be a game worth taking me over there for. But I don't think at this point it's possible to go back to Xbox full time. It would be part time pretty much for both.
Yeah. So my answer to the question was, what company, if any, could pull me in the current gaming landscape? If we're talking about gaming, nobody. PlayStation has me.
Well, I think the open-ended question would be, if there was another company, like if it was Microsoft or Nintendo, who would be the one to pull you if you were to be pulled?
Okay, if I was going,
if you had to,
okay, so let's just say if if nobody's going to pull me from PlayStation in the current landscape. If PlayStation closed tomorrow and all I had left was Microsoft and Nintendo, the one that would pull me would be Microsoft, and that's because they get the third parties at least that Nintendo is either getting far too late or not at all. That would be my answer.
Yeah.
I also think that Nintendo's exclusives lean too heavily on existing properties, and they don't risk enough going with new ideas and letting their people take new ideas to a very higher limit.
They were also completely out of touch with their fans.
They've been out of touch multiple times,
decades now.
But the argument can be made that PlayStation was out of touch with their fans when the PlayStation 3 started.
Yeah.
So, I mean, anybody can get out of touch with their fans. Microsoft was out of touch with their fans at the beginning of this generation. It's a problem that all businesses eventually run into when they're very successful, because they're trying to have that success and also make the most business sense they can, and they fight each other in some ways. And there's ways around that to some extent, but someone's always going to be mad about something, and just how big of an effect it's going to have. But yeah, I'm with you. I mean, the reason that, so if we want to talk about why am I entrenched in PlayStation, it's obviously the exclusives.
Right.
I can't look at Microsoft right now, and even if I like what they're doing in some departments, and even if I like what Nintendo's doing in some departments, they're all building in different ways. If you think about, like you said, you like what current Microsoft's doing. Microsoft's building towards a platform that doesn't even matter about the console. And now if that's what they want to do, that would mean that eventually it would be smartest for them to have Xbox in this platform of what they're calling Xbox also be available on PlayStation if it can continue down its route of focusing on the idea of the console and not the service of.
Could you imagine like 5 years with PS5, Xbox One X doesn't have an Xbox One X2 or whatever, it becomes that Microsoft is now a service you pay for on PlayStation to get the exclusives.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, and it's possible.
That would be sick.
It's possible in terms of
that'd blow my mind.
Yeah, it's possible in terms of what Microsoft is aiming for, or what they're building towards currently. Everything that we can see from Microsoft makes sense that that's where they're trying to go, and they're even talking about it in the sense of that. So, I mean, them being on PlayStation as a subscription service is only one step removed from them being a subscription service that doesn't require a console anyway.
And World End says one big obstacle to me is the controller on Xbox. I can't play with that controller.
That's what I was going to say. Controller for me, I can't.
I'll say right now that
I can play with it, but not comfortably, and not well, and I wouldn't want to.
The new Xbox One controller, though, like the one that has come out with the Xbox One, not Xbox 360, that controller is the best controller they've ever had.
It's the best they've ever had. I will give them that. It's very sturdy feeling.
It's very on par with the DS4. It is just it's not quite up there.
What it is, and no joke.
It's the same problem the PS3 controller had. The sensitivity of the thumbsticks.
There's that, and there's all. I can't, dude. My brain doesn't do asymmetrical. Diagonal, I don't like the asymmetrical. I can't do
that for me. Being a 360 player from last gen doesn't really affect me.
Roland said he'd go full PC again.
I mean, that's basically what I would do.
I would lean far heavier into PC. It'd be. Which, here's the thing. If I had to go anywhere right now, if PlayStation closed tomorrow, I would just stay on PC.
I think it is, though, for consoles. Like, so I don't think PC counts.
Yeah. So, but yeah, anybody else, Yeah, I mean, Microsoft, if I had no choice, Microsoft would be where I'd go, and it makes sense because I already have an account and stuff like that. Nintendo are still too far behind. They still don't have reasonable accounts. The way their online services work are not up to snuff for me yet, and their games are too far. They're too in between of what I would want. Their exclusives aren't as mature as I'd like. I don't ever imagine even seeing a game like Horizon on Nintendo. That's a big problem. I mean, you could say that Breath of the Wild is the closest you could probably get to it, but they're still very different. And the way that they approach storytelling is very different. Nintendo does not have a knack for storytelling. They have a knack for gameplay, and that's great. That's cool for them, but I also want a very compelling story with my game, so,
If I had to pick between Nintendo and Xbox, I would have no choice. I would pick Xbox. That's pretty much.
That's what I think because that's where the third parties lie. So you'd still at least get to play some games.
And this is as primary. This doesn't mean all of them doesn't exist. So that means I think that having an Xbox and a Switch as backup is a perfect system.
But what would be your main one? I think is the answer.
Xbox,
and that would end up being Xbox.
Of course.
Here's the craziest thing about that answer, though. If we're going with my random PlayStation close tomorrow. Where are you going to play most of these JRPGs that are now? Thankfully, a lot of them are starting to come to PC.
They would either go to PC or Xbox. Other than that, all the other companies.
Well, Xbox, yeah, but they'd go to Switch. Really, if you think about it.
No, I guarantee you, Microsoft will pay big money for those, like
some,
they did. Like
some.
No, all. Like
I don't think all because you got to think about a lot of JRPGs exist because the market is in Japan and Xbox aren't in Japan.
I think
if PlayStation closed, Nintendo already has a foothold in Japan. They would just take over everything PlayStation had.
I think though with those system limitations, they would either buy the rights up and not use them, or they would buy the rights up and make really like weird to mediocre
Well, Nintendo
ports.
wouldn't have to buy the rights up, right? They just say, "Hey, look, we've already got a platform in the nation where this is going to do the best. You put your game on ours and just tweak them to run on our hardware limitations, and then the next system will try and make it a little more powerful to help you." Maybe,
yeah.
That's
but
a
I
weird
think
thing.
There's a lot of wasted time there that it would be fine to be working on Xbox.
Sure. And then the other thing is one more thing to talk about that is the way that PlayStation handles their fans. People can say that they're anti-consumer and all these things.
See?
But no one else has a PSX. No other company has a PSX or equivalent.
I don't think a PSX is needed half the time, though.
Dude, PSX is incredibly cool for what it's aiming to do.
I know.
And it's showing you that this company cares
cool.
enough about their fans that they're getting directly in contact with them and cutting out the middleman of E3, cutting out the middleman of PAX. They own the entire thing. That show floor is theirs. When you're walking around, everything on there is going to be on their platform, on their console. Everybody you're seeing is in the same thing as you. I mean, it's one of those things.
Let's see. We do have a couple things coming in from Twitch chat that I know we said we're not going to pay a lot of attention to, but I think if we fit them seamlessly into the episode, it'll be fine. Sandcoffin says, having switched from Xbox One to PS4, the PlayStation controllers just feel unnatural. That was the problem I had last gen with getting.
He said
PS3.
they just feel natural to me.
Oh, they do.
Yeah,
I had the opposite problem last gen, where the PS3, the thumbsticks on the PS3 are the problem the Xbox One controllers have now. They're too sensitive. But World End does say if PlayStation closed, Phil would take that 5th trip to Japan and steal all those JRPGs. He totally would. They just bought 5 studios. They're not slowing down anytime soon if they needed to. But then Liam chimes in and says Persona 6 on Xbox. Disgusting.
Now we talked about a little bit of exclusives. If Xbox is fixing their exclusive problems in terms of quantity and quality, then they may do well if I had to go somewhere else. The fact they bought Ninja Theory bodes well for them. I'd be happy about that. Yeah. I'd be cool to play whatever Ninja Theory does next.
For sure.
Let's see. I'm going to get this one real quick. No Man's Sky Next Impressions.
It's okay.
Did you play it?
And this comes from our boy Ryan. Yes.
Okay. I couldn't remember if you actually played.
I played it before you did.
Next? You did?
Yes.
Okay, my bad.
Remember,
I'm sorry.
I'm the one that told you to start your game over.
You are right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
It's the same problem I have with it that I've always had with the game. And it's just one of those things that you just forget about until you do it again. But it's the micromanagement you're constantly having to do. It gets really annoying. And I know the farther you get, the better
it gets. Yeah, there's actually a lot you get.
But it's just one of those things too of it just can't hold my attention that long to where I am that far into the game to where the micromanagement is better. If I had more time, I would probably play it. But since I don't, and there are other games like Death's Gambit, Dead Cells, not Hyper Light Drifter. What am I trying to say? Hollow Knight, Octopath. Everything that's come out in this past couple of months has not been my top priority.
So it was for a couple weeks for me. But here's the thing. August being full of games that I was incredibly excited for. Guacamelee 2 has been phenomenal. It's been very good. I wouldn't necessarily say better than the first, but it's, all sequels have that
judging off
thing.
Judging off all those little hidden things they have in there.
It's very funny and it's very rewarding experience to play the. They're doing exactly what they needed to as a sequel, but yeah, it's been really August kicked it out of my rotation. I still enjoy it and I like the game and I'll probably try and go back to it. But we have Friday Spider-Man's coming. There's a lot of stuff going on, but the game does a lot and they've even added. Did you see that they added seasons with cosmetic items that are free? There will never be microtransactions. Is what he said.
Good on Hello
I believe
Games for that.
I mean, there's a lot. I think it looks cool. The way that they're introducing more story stuff is interesting. God, Kyrie's in there yelling. But it looks really great. I mean, if you've not played it, I've played a lot. I probably put another 25 hours on my save since Next has launched. The multiplayer is fun. Base building is more fun than I ever thought it'd be, and I never got around to doing it when they originally did it. But being able to do it with friends and it being seamless and they can help you build or help you take away, it's really interesting, and I think it adds a lot more layers to the game. And as they continue to build on it, it's a game that I can see myself going back to with every update for at least 20 to 25 hours.
Yeah, and sticking on No Man's Sky, we actually have 2 more questions involving No Man's Sky. Hell Teacher Loki wants to know No Man's Sky crossover ideas. Star Trek, Star Wars, Alien, Predator examples are. Man, that's such an odd question that I never thought about.
I like the idea of the question though, right? It's No Man's Sky gets big enough. What's the next obvious thing to do? Start putting some sci-fi stuff into it just for crossover things. But wouldn't that add microtransactions into it? That's where it gets into the
possibly.
Unless they'd be willing to let them put it in the game for free.
What I really hope they do is not really a crossover, but I really hope they do something that Elite Dangerous did, which they brought the aliens back that are famous from the series, from earlier Elite Dangerous games, and they brought them back. The Thargoids, I think is what they're called. But they brought them back in the coolest way possible, where somebody was just randomly exploring one part of the galaxy and came across their ship. Nobody knew what it was until they saw the ship, and they were like, oh, God, what is that? And it was kind of like a horror movie almost, like where you're flying around in space out there by yourself in the quiet, deep, dark space. And then in the distance, you see a ship that's just sitting there. So you go closer to make sure they're not out of gas or whatever, but it's an alien ship. And then over the course of the past, like I say past, this happened last year, but it's been over the course of the months after that they slowly added more and more and more. And they've added to where you can go on the planets now and that there are wrecked Thargoid ships. That would be something really, really cool that No Man's Sky could do, where they would invent an alien race that was very hostile, that would hunt you down, and then they would very creepily add it into the game.
Okay.
To make
slow
it
and steady,
almost,
like they're almost slowly invading.
Right. And I think it would be really, really
I could
cool.
see that. If I think about actual crossovers, I mean, I think that the coolest thing to do would be, as crazy as it be,
the coolest.
Xenomorphs would be cool. I actually think the Necromorphs would be awesome. It's video game to video game. Throw me in some Dead Space creatures, man. Give me some Necromorphs.
I don't think we have the technology to fight those.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
No, hit dismemberment tools in No Man's Sky. I mean, that'd be a cool thing to add.
Dismemberment. You'd have the terrain manipulator, body part manipulator. You just cut their arm off with.
No.
That'd be great. That's a weird question, but I mean, there's a lot of sci-fi stuff they could do. But Xenomorphs seem like to be the obvious answer of what would be coolest for them to do. But I think other video game aliens would be cool. It's just the most notable video game aliens I can think of are Necromorphs. And yeah, I guess maybe the XCOM aliens would be a funny Easter egg. The enemy unknown aliens.
That would be kind of cool. The second you start bringing mainstream stuff into video games, I was talking to somebody about this, maybe you not too long ago. The second that you start adding in like
pop culture,
any kind of pop culture into video games, you lose me. Like in Mortal Kombat, adding Freddy and Krueger and all that crap, just get all that out of here. Like I don't want to do like this is a video game. Stop adding pop culture crap into this. It makes it more cringy on my end for some reason. I just don't like it.
I'm going to throw in a question from the chat.
Oh, sure.
If you had to hand over Dead Space 4 to any company, who would you want it to go to? I'm dying for the final game. Man, that's a great question because Visceral's gone. They were closed, sadly. But Visceral had a real. The weird thing about Visceral is,
I know exactly who.
Who? Alien Isolation.
Creative Assembly.
Yeah, it's funny.
Tell me that wouldn't work out well.
World End just said it too. The guys that made Alien Isolation.
Exactly. It would be.
I think it would. I think if you look at the games, I mean, I think it would work out well. Perfect? I don't know, right? I think that you could probably potentially give it to the team that directly developed Resident Evil 4. If you can get that group together. Because here's the thing. The inspirations that Dead Space wears on its sleeves are so obvious that I think if it'd be cool to see the game that was inspired by Resident Evil 4
was it?
Continue heavily.
No, dude, didn't Didn't Dead Space come out a year and a half after Resident Evil 4? Did they make that game in a year and a half?
No. First of all, Resident Evil 4 came out in like 2004. Dead Space came out in 2008.
Never mind. I'm thinking about PS2 Resident Evil 4, which came out 2 years
2005.
after. Yeah, 2000.
Or 6.
Was it?
One of the two.
Yeah, it was 2 years after the GameCube release. Okay, that makes sense.
So yeah, no, but anyway, I think that it'd be interesting to get that specific group back together. Outside of that, I'm not sure. I mean, because anybody else is going to try and taint it with things that I don't necessarily think that it needs. And even then, that goes to the Resident Evil teams. And it's funny, right? Dead Space and I think it was 2005.
3 years difference, yeah.
Yeah, for PS2. Now, when did it come out on GameCube?
2 years before that, so
Okay.
2003.
Okay, that makes sense.
Oh, wait, if I'm remembering correctly.
That sounds
I'll
right.
have to look it up real quick.
Come on now.
I
I don't think that's right.
No, it's not.
We're going to look at something. Anyway, what's interesting about that is that both Resident Evil and Dead Space both had the same problem. With every entry, they got more action-oriented. Even though I think 2 is the perfect blend. But I don't know who I think Creative Assembly is a good answer because I've seen people play that game and I've seen a good bit of the game, and I think it keeps a lot of the vibes of the being on a spaceship and isolated in space intact. And they'd have that going for them. I did not play the team that made, which I think is Shinji Mikami, right? Isn't he the guy who is doing Tequila, not Tequila Works, I'm sorry. I can't think of what the name of the company is that did the Bethesda game.
Oh my gosh, why'd you do this to me?
What's the Bethesda game? Somebody chat, help us. It's the one with the Evil Within.
Yes.
I can't remember the name of the developer right now. Tango Works.
Yeah.
Tango Works, I think, is actually some of the Resident Evil people, isn't it?
I don't think so. I think there's some of the Silent Hill people in there.
I'm not sure. Let me see.
But while he looks up that, we're going to get back on to No Man's Sky for the last question involving No Man's Sky. From a business perspective, why have Hello Games put 2 years of resources into No Man's Sky? I get the goodwill angle. Okay, that came together wrong. I get the goodwill angle, but goodwill doesn't shift units. Was it in for the Xbox release, or was it to show potential of the future for the publishers and investors they can deliver? From our boy Dan. So my issue, or it's not even an issue. My thought on this is obviously because they had to.
Yeah, Shinji Mikami was the creator of Tango Gameworks, and he was Resident Evil. And he returned to direct third-person shooter Resident Evil 4. So I mean, I haven't played the Evil Within enough. I did not like the Evil Within 1 on PC. About an hour and a half to 2 hours in, I couldn't get into it. I still have it. I may try and go back and play it one of these days. And I've not played 2. They may be able to handle it though. So we'll see.
Them for sure. So, but yeah, Dan was wanting to know why they put 2 years into resources into No Man's Sky, and he's wondering not only did they do it to shift units, but for the goodwill and the future of the company, they did it because they had to. Hello Games would have never have been able to make a game again.
Exactly. So it really is goodwill in the future of the company.
Right.
If they would have crapped this game out, right, had all the problems that they had in terms of the lies and stuff, and they just said we're dropping it. Excuse me. They said we're dropping it. We're not going to support it anymore, and we're going to move on to the next thing. The backlash they would have had would have affected their next release if they even would have been able to get to the next release.
No, they wouldn't.
And because they made a lot of money on launch, right? So they'd be able to float for a little while. But the thing is, the next game that they made, nobody would be able to trust it.
No.
Internet's too big right now. No Man's Sky had enough problems just with the backlash they got, which I mean, deservedly so, to be fair.
Yeah.
But the backlash they got from the game not even releasing as it was supposed to, and being able to get to where they are now, the only way for them to move forward as a company is to harbor the goodwill that they were able to do by slowly making this game into what everybody was wanting it to be, and then the rest of the way finding people who didn't realize that the original game was something that they were into anyway. And it kind of was a mixed bag, and showing that this continued support and being very, they have been super hard-headed, no microtransactions, no paid DLC. We're going to update the game to the point of where it's supposed to be, and we're going to keep doing that with no future plans for monetization. That they knew that if they did not go from here, it would have been dead. I think Sean Murray he went through some crap, again, deservedly so, but I think if they wouldn't have gone this route, Hello Games would be gone, and whatever their potential is as a developer would have been gone as well. And it's do you really want to know that potential may have been gone? Because I will tell you this right now. No Man's Sky, I've had so much more fun with than I ever had with Joe Danger. and Joe Danger was a game that they made to be able to make No Man's Sky. So when you think about it, I would have never played Joe Danger and been like, No Man's Sky is going to come from this developer, even in its launch state. So you got to think about the potential they have to move forward as they get more funding and more talented people and more backing from different companies and what they could make. And I think that that's where I'd go with it, is that I'd rather them stay around and do what they did, which is exactly what they had to do to stay around, so that we can see what their future potential is.
And that's what it is that if Sean Murray would have kept quiet this entire time, he would never make another game again. And if he did, it would be negative reviews. Or what is it? I can't think of what it is on Steam. I think No Man's Sky was still at until Next came out, but it's drastically negative or whatever they call the game to be if with all the reviews are read. But yeah, he'd never, ever be able to show his face in the gaming.
Yeah, I agree. Real quick, the Stoner says, I honestly think they didn't have enough funds, so they hyped it and dealt with the backlash since they sold so many copies, which in turn gave them funds to finish the game they originally envisioned.
It wasn't that.
There's more to it than that. And I'm go ahead, Saul, because I want to see.
Well, I'm going to say there's no way they lacked funds when Sony helped them. Sony would have made sure they had the funds. And either the way that happened is either still Sean's fault because either he promised a product he couldn't deliver because he couldn't get his budget right, or it was that Sony just did not give them enough money to do the project that Sean had already talked about, which I don't think the second one is what it was. I think if it was something like this, Sean talked about the game to Sony, pitched it, and then realized that it required way more funds after talking to everybody about it publicly and realized that he could not get it or that he did not have the correct team for the job. I think it was that he did not have the correct team for the job.
I think it was that mixed with the fact that they pulled a little too much under their belt and thought that they could handle it, and as the closer they got to the end, they realized they couldn't, but they had done too much speak at that point to try and backpedal.
And
I think the other side is what a lot of people forget about is that this game had 2 to 3 years of development under its belt when the entire studio was flooded and they lost the entire game and had to restart from scratch. That's incredibly important to think about.
Yeah.
When I say from scratch, they may have had a couple of things, but they really had to restart from almost square one. And that's when Sony really came back and started helping them. So I think it was a mixed bag of Sony being like, we'll help you, but we want this, this, and this, and saying, okay, here's what we're trying to do. And I think it's a mixture. You also got to think about the fact that prior to the flood dropping everything, they had already talked about what the game was supposed to be. And
I don't think the flood was real.
Really?
I don't think that happened.
You Illuminati...
No, I'm dead serious. Like, I really don't think there was something that drastic that it literally wiped everything out. Really?
Yeah. I mean, dude, first of all, yes, it happens. And indie developers are the ones who typically get that kind of brunt because they don't have what the bigger developers have.
So why did Sony not have them delay the game even further?
Well, the game was delayed almost a year and a half after its original point.
Even further, though. That's the thing, is that...
But once Sony's putting funds into it, I'm sure what the agreement probably was, hey, we know that y'all had a flood and y'all lost a lot of stuff. We're going to replace y'all's equipment, let y'all get a head start back on building the game back up. But we want it to be on our system first. PC's fine, so you have a slightly broader market, and we want it out by this date max.
Right.
And they go, if you can't do this, we won't help you. And what may have happened is that No Man's Sky may have said, like,
here's the issue.
We got to do it because we want to make the game. I don't know. I don't want to go too crazy because I hate talking too much speculation.
Well,
I don't want to. I would never say the flood didn't happen. The flood happened.
My only issue is that they have done as much for this game that was the amount of content that has come out for this game is higher than the game content when it released, and it's only been a year.
2 years.
2 years, yeah. So that's the thing, is that in a year and a half, how did the game release in that sense there?
Are you saying how did the game release the way it did, but then in 2 years they were able to make that much more content?
Yeah.
You have a base game to build upon when you're doing that, and you get into hold on. You have some of what Stoner's saying is true. At that point, you do have funds, and they can possibly bring in more people, make the team bigger, shift and adjust, and get feedback so they know where to go. Whereas if you're doing this thing in a closed echo and there's less feedback, you don't quite know where people want you to go, and it can sometimes be the detriment of a game. God of War is a perfect example of a game that, under closed doors, if you read about it, there was a thing that World End shared recently where he's talking about Shu being like, this was like 8 months prior to the game coming out. The game was dropping frames heavily. It wasn't fun to play. It had a lot of problems. The combat wasn't nailed down to where it was supposed to be, and that Shu literally said he was horrified whenever he played it. And then the last bit of time, that 8 months after hearing some feedback of a certain way, they were like, we've got to crunch. We've got to get this done. And they ended up being able to pull the game together in time to get it out to its release. But that's also why we didn't get a release date for that game. God of War had way more money in it than No Man's Sky did. They had more to lose. They would have stood on delaying it even more if they needed to, whereas No Man's Sky, it was probably No Man's Sky, Sean, not going completely honest and being able to be like, well, here's what we have here, and it looked fine, but nobody realized that stuff was wrong. I think that Sony is a little bit to blame because there's no way that Sony didn't know there was no multiplayer and tried pulling that speak back and doing some damage control. You know what I mean?
Yeah, my issue though is that they blame this on the flood. I'm not saying the flood didn't happen. I'm just saying that was not the reason that this been delayed.
Yeah.
Because the issue is that, like right here, if you just look on their website, it just says we'd probably rather not eat than do the right thing for this game. That's a load of PR crap, dude.
Sure, but sure on that, but I just think it's really ballsy for you to say the flood didn't happen.
No, okay. Let me rephrase that, because what I meant was the flood's not the reason it was like this.
Maybe. That's a very different statement.
If Naughty Dog was working on a game and a flood happened, do you think Sony would not allow them more time to work on a game?
No, they absolutely would. But then again, Naughty Dog is owned by Sony wholly.
Well, put any major indie developer up there then, or any developer that's working.
I don't know.
A tragedy stuff.
Because I also don't think that Sony. I don't know how much Sony had involved in that. So that's why I say speculation is just too hard. There's a lot that you can see. All I'm going to get at is that the game obviously had to do this to be able to get back on its feet. That they did the right thing by where we are now. They did not do the right thing at launch, but it may have been
that's the problem.
It may have been that they had to, because if they wouldn't have even released the game, they probably wouldn't have been able to stretch it to make where they are now.
That's the big problem, though.
But the game should have released in a better state. I am with you there.
Well, no, that's one of those issues that with devs is like, once you're burned once, you're always burned, and that's the thing, is that like you can't say like, oh, the game is like this because of all the floods, we lost everything. The flood happened before you went to E3 and advertised this game. Why were
the
flood happened in 2014.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, but that came after a year after they announced, or within 6 to 8 months or something like that, of when they announced the game at Gamescom, and it got a lot of press at Gamescom 2013,
so like,
or whatever it
was.
By
then, though, you would know whether or not your game has all this.
Well, yeah, at that point, it may have been to where when they were wanting to release it, they were on a better track to do it. And then also, like I say, they ran into a bunch of problems with it, because networking is crazy in a game that does a lot of this.
Dude, the game studio for this was like 25 people.
Yeah, less than that.
So are you talking about networking in terms of...
I'm talking about like online infrastructure in a game that's...
I thought you were talking about like communication networking.
No. I mean like actual game stuff. I feel like they, again...
Because Sean Murray could have like literally yelled across an office to reach the person who was working on networking and ask, are we going to have multiplayer by this time?
Yeah, they shouldn't have done that. Absolutely, they shouldn't have done that.
And then he went on stage after all this and said, it has it.
World then says, isn't The Last Guardian proof that Sony gives time to their devs? Yes, definitely once they consider to be prolific.
See, now this is
which is a great example. So Naughty Dog is a hard game to say that too, because Sean Murray, no one considers Sean Murray prolific. People consider Fumita Ueda prolific. I mean, people consider, when you think about Neil Druckmann at this point, they would say, because of the success they've seen with him and the love that the game's received, I think at this point, if something happened and Neil Druckmann was like, hey, we need another year, they just bite down the bullet and go, crap, okay, we'll give you another year because we know it's going to be worth it in the long run.
Yeah,
but
it's just the issue of the way Sean Murray is.
And if this game, the studio was wholly owned by Sony, it'd be a whole different ballpark. Right. And the way I feel about it.
And I'm not saying I don't give him props for delivering at least the game. Because he delivered the game and it came out now that it's been completely free updates, all this stuff, and it's pretty much what it promised was. It's just hard to believe that, all this stuff happened to happen to you with the flood and all this other stuff, and then you're going to go online a stage and lie about it.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that, like, it's not something.
And I don't think it was an intended lie. That's all I'm getting at. It
was a lie of omission, though.
I think he initially told it like he thought it was going to be in there, and then
he was asked.
And then I know that's what I'm saying.
He was asked multiple times across multiple timelines.
But they initially announced it. But they talked about it before anybody ever asked him about it. That's why it kept getting brought up, right? And then what ended up happening is, I think that, like you say, lie by omission. By the time that he probably wanted it to be in there initially, and then by the time that he realized it wasn't most likely going to be ready for launch,
that's not like
it was.
I
he was like
that, but it's
like bad practice.
He went on Conan,
but we've been on this
Game
forever.
Informer.
So.
Yeah,
and I remember Stephen Colbert. I even think
Stephen Colbert too. Yeah, and it's like, yes. He's like, can you see other people? He's like, you cannot see yourself, but you only know what you love by other people. Like, you're lying. Like, the person who works 15 feet away from you out of the 25 people will have let you know that you cannot play online right now.
Yep.
And they didn't have character models developed, so he was lying. I'm glad he's done what he has, but man, does that make me mad.
He's turned around. I trust him now. You know what I mean?
I don't. I mean, he's a good guy, but like, I'm not gonna trust him.
Everything he said about Next was true.
No. It was.
I know. That's
but
what
it has
saying.
to be.
I know.
All this has to be like he knows he can't mess up again. Have you ever gotten a game, or have you ever gotten to a part of a game that is so hard that you cannot beat it and have walked away from that game as a child and or as an adult? Not because. Oh, thank you, Josh, for that question.
I definitely have.
I don't think so.
But it's this weird thing where you've probably experienced this at least, right? Have you ever been playing a game for so long that and then you get to a point where something goes wrong and you start feeding into your own frustration and you're actually doing worse because you're getting more and more angry?
But I never not went back to it.
I know that. That's what I was going to. So I've never done that, but the longest example of what I have done is Heavenly Sword on PS3. I got to the final boss fight, and I don't know what it was. Seth was over, and I'd been playing it all day. I messed up a couple of spots where I knew I shouldn't have, like not because of the game, but I was like, why am I sucking? And then I kept getting worse and worse and worse. And then I got up in my head about it. I was like, is this game this hard? There's no way. And then I went
for a bit.
Then I went to sleep and woke up and tried it one more time and still couldn't do it.
Right.
That was even more. And I was like, I just threw my head. I put the game down. I waited 8 months before putting it in again one random day after I'd forgotten how to play. Turned it on, beat it first try. And I was mad.
That's a thing that very, very likely happens is to everybody. And it's just that fatigue of you've been playing a game for so long, you start slipping mentally and you don't realize it.
Whirlwind said, I almost gave up fighting the last boss in Bloodborne Old Hunter DLC. I need to buy that because I've still not played it.
Yeah.
It's on sale right now.
Orphan of Cause. But for me, like the closest I've ever come is like Sound Shapes. I've told it before is that like I got the platinum finally twice. But I was playing and there's stupid like challenger levels that are literally randomly generated. And there's parts in it that just make it nearly impossible to do. And I deleted it from my PS4, and like an hour later, I reinstalled it. I still didn't beat that level as easily as I did going back into it, but I ended up slugging through it. What do you think is the worst game ever made? Another question for Josh Shoop. Too Human, without a doubt.
No. What's that motorcycle game that we talked about?
Ride from Hell?
Something like that? Hold on.
Retribution, right?
Retribution from Hell? Like... All you got to do to figure this out, I'm literally about to do it now, is really bad motorcycle game. Not accidents. I don't want to see that. But yeah, I guarantee you if I type in really bad motorcycle game, it's going to be Ride to Hell Retribution.
Ride to Hell Retribution.
Yep.
That's what it is. Yeah, that's the worst game ever made.
If you literally type that into Google, that is what pops up.
Sandcoffin says Superman 64. That's a good point.
I never played that piece of trash.
World End is throwing some shade, talking about Final Fantasy 15. No, sir. No, sir. Stoner says, in regard to the question about putting a game down, Kingdom Hearts Organization 13 data battles actually made me not return to Kingdom Hearts 2. It frustrated me beyond belief. Can you believe someone did all those level 1? Can you believe it?
I can't.
Can you believe someone did it without dying in between all of them? That's insanity.
But yeah, Superman 64 is a bad game because it's a...
That's a great example.
It's a bad superhero.
Hold on. I know the game. E.T. for the Atari.
I don't think it was bad. I think they just
literally it was bad. It was made in like less than 5 months or some ridiculous number.
I thought they just threw it all in a landfill so it became super expensive.
It was one of those games where it's like a bunch of like false advertisement and leading to stuff like that. Basically that game was not single-handedly, but that game was definitely to blame for some
I don't even know what it looks like in terms of gameplay.
Oh, it's awful.
It doesn't look good though. That looks like a Nintendo game.
Yeah.
Like an original Nintendo game, I should say.
Yep.
Or Atari game.
Yeah, it's Atari. It's even older than that.
Yeah. Just
so that's what I mean. That game is not single-handedly, but it's definitely highly attributed to the fall of the gaming industry. So at the time.
Speaking of how bad Superman is, we have some good stuff from Spider-Man and I really hope I pronounce your name right because it is definitely a name that I am unsure.
I'm going to say Reddy.
Redhi Basu.
I'm going to say Reddy. I'm going to say the H is silent. So Reddy Basu.
Okay, so Reddy. I hope I pronounced your name wrong. If I didn't, be sure to message us on Twitter and let me know so I won't make that mistake again. But he says, what are your expectations from the upcoming...
Hold up. I'm sorry. The Dolphin game on Sega? Are you talking about Echo the Dolphin? Because I fucks with Echo the Dolphin.
This is something that could have been typed in the Twitch chat.
No.
This is the kind of interruptions we don't need to have. This is what throws structure off. That's why I'm sorry. That's why we said we're not going to be interacting with Twitch chat. He says, what are your expectations for the upcoming Spider-Man game? Do you think it will be good enough to be Game of the Year discussions given the standard God of War is set? What's the ceiling for this game? Add your Metascore prediction as well if this question gets selected. Well, all of our questions get selected, silly. Love what you guys do and keep it up.
Thank you so much, Reddy, and I really hope we're saying your name right. But yeah, so we all think that like me and Brett, I think we're on the exact same page with Spider-Man. We think it's going to be a fantastic game. We both think that it is heavily a Game of the Year contender. Contender, meaning there's a possibility, of course.
Yeah, now don't get me wrong. I still think God of War is going to be my Game of the Year.
You're not supposed to spoil that.
I mean, it's not spoiled. I've talked about it enough. Don't get me wrong. You think I'm kidding? Dead Cells made me really be like, I can't believe this game, as much as I was excited for it, is even in my mind as a Game of the Year contender. This is insanity.
You know, if Death's Gambit didn't have the constant crashes, it'd be up
Dude,
there.
exactly. That's what I was going to say. If the experience tied around Death's Gambit wouldn't have been so bad, I think I'd agree that that's kind of where I was at. But no, I think Spider-Man's going to be fantastic. I mean,
yeah, I am super,
obviously.
This week is going to be really good. You guys are seeing it the day after Spider-Man came out. For us, me, Sean, that you guys know in Discord as Sean May, and Brett, we're going to go and probably go grab food, and Thursday go hang out and go like to Books and Million or the mall, 2018 kid stuff. And then we're going to go to GameStop and pick the game up that night. So I'm going to play it for as much as I can. And then I should be going out of town Friday, but I'll be back Friday night. And then play it Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, whatever time that we're not here recording or live streaming. But Metacritic score, we did this in Discord. For those that did not see it, I can't remember what I said. I think I said 92.
I think you did. 91 is where I landed.
That's right. You were right 1 point behind me.
91 is where I think it will really be, though I could see it being high 80s. There's a number of things. I think Insomniac's a big name, and even though this is going to be their biggest game, undoubtedly.
And World End fits in with us and says 93. I think it's going to be within, I think one of us is right, for sure. I don't know who is, but
I think it breaks 90, but at the same time, as much as I do think it breaks 90, if it ends up in that 89 section, I wouldn't just be massively surprised. But it's going to have a couple of things going for it. It's got the push of where Marvel sits, right? But that doesn't dictate whether it's a great game. But the thing is that Marvel cares more about quality than they ever have, definitely when it comes to gaming, and that's why they chose to do this game this way. They would not have given it to one developer on one platform for Sony to publish it if they did not want this game to be as good as they possibly thought it could be. And I don't think that Insomniac would have been entrusted with a game if Sony didn't trust them to deliver. I don't think that they would have let them choose, because that was another interesting tidbit, is that Spider-Man was chosen by them. They were given a choice of any Marvel world they wanted to do, and they chose Spider-Man, which is interesting.
hey, shenanigans and such is here.
Yeah. Is that a Raichu?
It is.
That's nice. Anyway, so there's a number of reasons why I think that the quality is going to be there to at least put it in the high 80s, which is great, and that keeps it in line with the PS3 or PS4 exclusives this generation, being pretty much 85 and above across the board. Except for The Order. I think that there may be one more, but I don't think so. They're all pretty high.
And staying on topic with Spider-Man, we do have another question from our good friend Josh Drago, asking the important one. He says, when you guys get the new Spider-Man game, will you be playing the song Hero by Nickelback from the original Spider-Man movie? You know what? I completely forgot that was a thing. That's why that question's so good.
I did and I didn't. And here's the thing. I kept trying to remember how the song goes. And for some reason, every time I think of a song with hero in it, I think of, I can be a hero, baby. And of course, that's not the song. And I keep trying to think, is this the song, if I'm remembering? It's like, I need a hero, something like that. I'm trying to think, because I'm not a Nickelback fan, really.
No,
just to be honest.
Deep down.
Nah, man. I mean, nobody can deny that How You Remind Me is a catchy, good song, and that's obviously why they're,
of course,
a big band.
But Nickelback transcends the meme. It's one of those things that like
it goes above and beyond.
Yeah.
Yes. I will. You know what? I will do it, and then I will. As soon as the game's booting up, I will take a video. I'll put it on Twitter and Facebook, and you can see, Josh. I will prove you that that's what I'm going to do.
There you go.
Let's see. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say another Josh. Our good friend Josh Ayers.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
He says, "What are your thoughts on Gamescom and what showed off? Anything you want to see at TGS pre-presentation?" So for those that don't know, TGS is Tokyo Game Show, and you know what? Persona 5 on Switch, like they did Persona 5 Golden, would be really cool to see. Other than that, though, like
wait, so you're saying you'd like to see that, but it wasn't shown, right?
At TGS. That's all I want to see at TGS.
Oh.
Yeah, Gamescom, I didn't really see anything I liked.
I got you. I don't think that Persona 5 Golden would be happening on Switch anytime soon because they typically leave Golden to be much
4 years.
later.
Yeah, 4 to 5 years.
And yeah, so I don't see that being the case. Be interesting. But he mentions what we saw at Gamescom and what we liked. Biomutant is definitely up there. That's one of those things where it's an interesting
I forgot
looking
they showed
game.
that off, and it does look really cool.
It does.
When he was in the stomach.
Dude. It looks charming and
I will
obviously
say, yeah.
double A, but it looks everything about it fits the style. So it's smart they went that way because like when they're hitting and stuff and it says crack and smash and stuff like that when you're doing punches and the art style that they're going
It's
for.
really cute. I like it.
One of the things I thought was really cool, and this is again something I wouldn't expect you to see in a big game. I think I may have talked to you about it already, but when you're making your character,
Sekiro, yeah.
Sekiro looked great. But in a Biomutant, when they show when you're making your character, like when you go to their attributes of like whether you want them to be smarter or stronger and stuff like that, as you're moving around this thing, it's actually physically altering parts of your body. So it's like the smarter you are, the bigger of a head you'll have. Like it'll be more like elongated to like have a bigger brain. If you're more muscular, you'll have like if you want to be more athletic, then you're going to be a more muscular build. I think that's a cool way. It's something that's going to be interesting to see, and it's just unique about the game. Not necessarily amazing, but it's a cool idea.
Yeah. And he was right about Sekiro. I forgot they did show that. And they showed
Sekiro looks awesome.
They showed a couple new what is it called? Gameplay mechanics in the game that looks really, really cool. But other than that,
and that collector's edition only being $79. I need to go pre-order that. I keep forgetting. I hope that they are not out.
I am more than looking forward to that game for sure. But
March? Is that what they said? Or is it
February?
February?
I'm pretty sure it's February. Or they may not have said yet exactly. I don't know if they've said the exact date.
They've given it a date. I wanted to say it was March.
March 22nd. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I thought.
Yeah, that's right. Because it was 1 month after all the February crap coming out. Like literally 1 month after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna go. Let's see. I'm gonna choose another one. Kiki. He's in the chat with us. Says, what do you guys enjoy more and why? Western RPGs or JRPG games? This is a hard question.
JRPG games.
I don't know, man, because like
JRPG games are more amusing. They have everything that Western RPG does, but they're more amusing. They may not do everything as well, or I would say everything. They don't. There's things that they do better than each other, but JRPGs are more oftentimes the more amusing, except the Fable series. The Fable series, thinking of Fable 1 and 2 specifically,
very charming.
It's hard to match.
Yeah, very charming.
When it comes to a
JRPG
JRPG series.
See, but a part of this comes from the fact that you aren't as big of a fan of The Witcher, so I could see why it falls a little differently for you.
Western RPG.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about
okay,
in comparison to the question. The Witcher is a big one for me, man. I mean, that's a huge Western RPG that's really good.
Ooh.
Now, okay, I get what he's saying. So, World End says that their Western RPGs are watered down. Yeah,
depends.
but what do you consider to be watered down? Are you talking about because they're not getting a sexual or ridiculous character design or what? Because that's not to me, that's not the content of the game.
I know what
that
he
matters.
means because there is depths that and this is what
I don't consider The Witcher 3 to be watered down.
Well, no, but I think what he means pretty much with this is that he says story. So story, I mean, Witcher 3, I can't say much of it. I know you can, but like name like. We'll do this for fun. Name 2 really good JRPGs with fantastic stories, excluding anything from Final Fantasy. Make this hard. And we're going to name 2 good Western RPGs, excluding anything from... No, we won't even exclude anything from there, because Fable can't touch Final Fantasy, any of the stories in Final Fantasy.
Fallout story is trash. Fallout 4 story is so trash.
Now, hold on here.
God.
He said story, not stories.
I know. Well, he said Fallout, but he also didn't put a number behind it.
Okay, so
Fallout 3's story is man. New Vegas is better by far. Fallout 4 is man.
I'm going to say 2, though. You can't say 2 is bad story.
No, Fallout 2 is cool.
I know. I'm
cool.
just making sure that we get that.
They're very different, though. They're passive stories in a way, too, the way that those games end up playing
Persona
out.
5 story characters are amazing. Now, that I can't agree with, which is why Persona 4 is one of my JRPG picks of this little conversation we're having, because Persona 4 did it really good, especially starting out. They both really kind of started out in the same way, in a weird like crime scene kind of way, or a crime scene, but crime kind of way, where 5 was you starting out as a trying to think of the way to say this for those who haven't played it yet, because I know you may want to play it soon. So
What, Persona?
Yeah, 5.
I'm still mixed on whether I'll have
but I'm
time
trying to
for
avoid
it
around,
because it's
but
very long.
You pretty much are like a crime lord in a weird way in Persona 5 in the beginning, and then in Persona 4, there's this weird string of murders going on in the beginning. But yeah, Persona 4 for sure is one of them. I did say Final Fantasy is off limits, but I did not say Tales is off limits, so Tales of Symphonia is the second one. But for Western, like Mass Effect 2 is really good. The story with the
Best of the 3 for
I'll say
sure.
the bad guy is voiced by what is his name? It's a famous actor, and and he makes the perfect bad guy. And let's see. And all their voices, to be fair, is really good. Did I not put massive? Oh my gosh! You see how unused I am to the tactility of this keyboard. I said it earlier on stream, I think. Not Keith David, not Michael Hogan. I was trying to go through very fast.
I'll say you're being very slow with it. I was hoping you'd be quicker, but I'm not sure who.
Oh, Clancy Brown's in one of the Mass Effect games. Interesting. Also known as the cop from Detroit.
Yep. Hank.
There he is. Let's see if it pulls it up. But come on.
The elusive man.
Yeah, and he's such a cool Martin Sheen.
Martin Sheen. Yeah.
I can't believe I forgot about that.
I forgot he was actually that too. Now that you say that.
But yeah, Mass Effect 2.
Okay, The Witcher 3. I think even though you may not agree with it,
I
think The Witcher 3's got.
It's just I didn't. I couldn't get into it to know what to agree with it or not.
Okay, so this is what I'll say. I think that, specifically speaking of Rolled In, he says Persona 5 story and characters are amazing, speaking as a JRPG. Well, The Witcher 3 story and characters and individual stories were amazing, and it's a Western RPG. It's why I say it's hard to say. Now, sometimes...
Is it really a Western RPG, though?
Yes. Anything that's not JRPG is considered a Western RPG. We're all west of Japan.
I guess so.
That's the way they view it, even though it's not necessarily the way it has to be. But no, okay, well, I mean, maybe Persona 5 is better. I don't necessarily know that answers the question. It's hard to say. Look, I have probably more reverence for JRPGs from over my years because I've played more phenomenal JRPGs, and there's a ton of Western RPGs that come out that are just subpar, Elix and stuff like that. I'm not saying that they have to be bad, but they're not great games, and they're made to be different, and they're not focusing on story, and since that's something I do love, there's a lot of games that, like, okay, Skyrim's a weird example of the story in Skyrim's cool. The characters aren't good. Because why would they be? Because the story is not handled that way. Then in Fallout 4, the story is bad because they try and give these characters a reason to be there, and they do it so badly that I'd rather be unspoken and have a cool premise and everything that's going on in the world and have characters be less part of that than Fallout 4 tried to do.
What's interesting is that they both suffer from the same thing, and that is the story facilitates a need of you having to do something for the story to be canonized or make sense, where you're both either looking for somebody or you're becoming somebody that you have to be. Like you're either the Dragonborn and you're a very important character no matter what in Skyrim, or you are looking for your son.
Yeah, Skyrim's a good point, and Fallout is a good point. And both of those are
limited to what the games are trying to be, which is
Morrowind and Oblivion are a little different.
Yes,
Oblivion's mixture. Oblivion's like somewhere between Morrowind and Skyrim.
I wouldn't even say Oblivion's a mixture, because at any point your character could be like, and it would make somewhat more sense in Skyrim. Your character would be like, I'm not getting involved in this, and walk away, and you're still a nobody. Where in Skyrim, no matter what, you're Dragonborn. You have this ancient blood in you.
That's a good point, but also the whole thing is that you are a chosen one in Oblivion. You were the one who was chosen to be in that jail cell. Whereas Morrowind, you're literally just starting off and getting out of jail. And that's it. And it's like, so I get what you're saying. Now, player agency plays a very different role in Western RPGs than they do in other ones. Definitely ones that we love. Like I do love Morrowind. I do love Oblivion. And I love Skyrim. But I love Skyrim because of what it did for, at the time, for sure, what it did for the world of a video game. And I do like that first-person gameplay. It's something I love about Dishonored, too. It's not something you see a lot in Western JRPGs. You normally see third-person. I do love Fable. I think Fable oozes with charm. And I think Fable had a cool enough story. It's a very old game. That's why I think it's hard to give it thing. But it had a cool world, cool characters for what it was.
Yeah.
And I think that if they were to redo it in a really serious way, I think it could be a great game. Again, because I do still think that Fable 1's fun, and it's very unique in a lot of ways. So I think Western JRPG or Western RPGs in comparison to JRPGs is a hard question to answer. I have more fond memories of JRPGs.
Yeah, I'm gonna say J.
Western. There was here's the thing. Last
It all comes down to what you prefer.
gen was the problem with JRPGs. They took a big dive last year.
Yeah, they cranked out way too many too frequently that weren't good.
Well, and none of them were as big or as not even say as big. None of JRPG scene was like watered down, if we're going to use that terminology in this conversation as a whole. They were just crap quality coming out. They sunk. The interest in them sunk. Western gaming rose. A lot of Japanese developers had problems getting games out on time or at a certain quality level, and thankfully that's changing this generation. But
Yeah. Let's see. Corey, our good friend Crash, he wants to know, what former video game mascots do you wish were still around? I mean, I don't really know if there is one for me.
Sly.
I guess so, yeah.
But here's the thing. He was never a true mascot.
No, yeah.
Crash Bandicoot is an easy example.
I was going to say Spyro, but Spyro is pretty much coming back.
Yeah, but they're all coming back in a weird way, and they're coming back based off of nostalgia, and they're only back because, now, don't get me wrong, it's still the answer to the question is they are back so that they shouldn't qualify. But for what they stood for at the time, they were real big. Kratos came back in a really big way, and that's awesome, even though he didn't have as many years off as you'd think. Drake's never gone away. I wish Little Big Planet would find a way to make itself come back in a cool way. I don't know if that'll ever happen. I wish that Metroid,
Croc.
if we're going off of that. Yeah, Croc, man, the PS1 alligator. That had,
I was thinking Killer Croc from...
it's Crocodile to be fair, but my point being...
King Croc from Donkey Kong.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that's his name.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool ones back in the day. I thought Klonoa was really cool back in the PS1 days, but I think that started to wane a lot in PS2 when games could do more. But Klonoa was really cool. I think Sonic has had a very odd last couple of years.
I think he's still back, though.
He's back more than... He never went away, I should say. But he's back in terms of being incredibly relevant in a good way, instead of being attached to a bunch of bad. He still is attached to a lot of bad. But there's a lot of PS1 things that were very interesting. I mean, but Metroid, Samus coming back, because
Samus has always been back though. Just not.
Well, they do not.
Metroid
They don't
sense.
give Metroid the due that it should.
But no, it's not just the Metroid sense though, because she's like, it's kind of hard to do Nintendo with Smash
because
Brothers
Smash
being
Brothers
a thing.
makes
Yeah.
everything relevant.
It's almost always a thing. You can't even say Mr.
King
Game
K.
Watch.
Rool is
It sure is, isn't it?
Yeah.
I know he's coming back in
is
Smash, but I was
Kratos is
thinking
back
of,
huge.
I'm
I'm trying to think of
Donkey
other
Kong, Super
PlayStation
Donkey
ones.
Kong.
I don't think
they're all
that,
pretty relevant.
No,
for
they
the
don't have
most
to be
part.
PlayStation. I'm just trying to think. PlayStation always had a problem of being able to latch onto one mascot that was theirs. The problem with Crash is it wasn't
Conker.
theirs.
It's not PlayStation, but it's Conker.
No, Conker was being rare, and that's technically Microsoft now.
Right. Well, I'm just saying,
Conker was very
in terms
interesting.
of mascots coming back.
Yeah, and he may. I wouldn't be that surprised. Conker is a very weird mascot. He was a adult-based mascot, which is which Kratos is at.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not saying that there's no room for him. Whereas somebody like Drake is obviously a mascot, but he's kind of all ages. Even though I'd say Kratos is too. Kratos may be a mature character, but I was playing God of War when I was 12. I mean, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
or
And,
not. I may not have been 12, but I was in my teens. Is my point.
Speaking of adult things, Josh Shoop wants to know, kill Mary Frick of gaming with all consoles of all time.
Oh wait. So what console would we get rid of? What console would we keep forever, and which one would we just play around with every now and then?
Yeah. So if I was to say kill, that's a hard one. Like, because every console that
Wii U.
I ever play. Yeah, actually, you know what? There you go.
I'm sorry,
you can't.
dude.
No, Wii. It can't be Wii U because Wii U gave us Zelda HD Wind Waker.
Okay.
Which was too good.
Okay, you're right.
So,
but
Wii.
okay, and you're gonna think that this is weird, but the
Wii.
Wii gave us Epic Mickey, and the first Epic Mickey was
It
incredibly
was
cool.
also on PS2. Was
no,
it not?
Epic Mickey was a Wii exclusive. Epic Mickey 2 came out on PS3.
No, okay, so I'm gonna.
This is
go
a
ahead
hard
and say,
question, man.
Kill me. I mean, there you go, poet. Did you a shout out? Kill Wii.
See, I can't kill the GameCube, dude. The
No, you
GameCube had
can't.
some killer
You
games.
can't. You had Pokemon Coliseum.
Because
you had Resident Evil 4. You
Wind
had
Waker.
Wind Waker. You had oh gosh, what else was there? Because there's so much. You had.
I didn't like Beautiful Joe, but a lot of people love
Beautiful Joe is one
Joe.
of them. You had Goldeneye, which was not Goldeneye. Night
What are you talking about?
Fire. Not Fire was on PS2 as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Goldeneye, not Fire. You had the Robo Battle game or Battle Robos. What are they called?
I don't remember what you're talking about there.
Custom Robo.
That's news to me. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, custom robo for GameCube. We rented it so many times over the
Kiki
course.
says GameCube has Mario Sunshine. Look, really, GameCube's
Yeah,
got
there
a
you
lot
go.
of big games for Nintendo. And Resident Evil 4 came out on that and was a big reason. Oh, I
Yeah.
do remember that.
We rented this dude at but we might have well owned that game.
Yeah.
We had that. We had rented it so much. But we for sure kill.
I mean, dude,
Man, Mary.
honestly, Wii U. I still have to say Wii U because while I love Wind Waker HD and it's the ultimate way to play it, I could still have fun playing Wind Waker on GameCube and not have to worry about killing. You know,
Nah.
it's hard to say one.
We'll agree to disagree then.
Okay.
So our kill is Wii and then Wii U. Mary, PS4, obviously. Like Bloodborne, Dark Souls 3, Grand Theft Auto 5.
I've got the kill. Sega Saturn. I don't need it. Panzer Dragoon is its own thing. I never played them. I don't need it. Kill the Saturn.
That makes sense.
Get rid of it. I don't need it.
And then we'll both marry the PS4.
Okay, yeah, dude. Oh, yeah. If I had to marry,
Yeah.
no, I take that back.
PS2.
PS3.
Man, you're
As
just
crazy as that is, dude.
contrarian.
No, marry the PS3. Here's the thing. The PS3's got a ton of memories for me, and I still love that system. Now, if I'm gonna flirt around with one,
Custom Robo was the shit. It was, Kiki. It was. It was, dude. I'm telling you that. I don't know if I spent that much time in any PS2 era, GameCube era game
oh god,
that me and Seth did.
I'm trying to think of what I would want to just be my play around with console. You know what I mean? Like, just tickle it every now and then. Just touch on it.
Okay, so you have Saturn for you. We have Wii for me.
Yeah, killing wise.
Xbox One. You
See, I
have
don't know if I'd go Xbox One. As crazy as it sounds, I think I may say OG Xbox. There's some really cool OG Xbox games.
half of
I
that,
like.
but half of the games on there is backwards compatible Xbox One.
Yeah, but but then again, if you killed the Xbox, that means you
But
don't.
you don't have to kill it if you kill the Saturn.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
So
I'm thinking
is,
that way.
Xbox One is the superior choice for this.
That's a good answer.
all the backwards compatibility.
That's
So I'll say kill Wii, marry PS4,
Flirt with the Xbox One X.
and frick,
that way I can play.
frick the Xbox One X. Because you have such a massive library of games.
Yeah, that's a good answer.
Between the Xbox One X and the PS4, you're set for life. You don't need anything else.
Yeah, because PS4 still gives you the
The exclusives that you
for
always
you. I
need,
mean,
and then-
don't get me wrong. I'm still saying I'd be happy with PS3. There's a lot of PS2 games. Oh yeah, because look, I married my backwards compatible PS3. I got all the PS2 games I ever needed. Bam, bam, bam. Cheat the system.
I forgot. Yeah. Flirt with the Game Boy Advance SP. That's actually that's
actually a
good
great
one.
answer. Sims.
I'm still
Sims
gonna
Herbs.
say Xbox One X because that gives me all the Halo games, which are my childhood.
There's a lot of
And,
Game Boy Advance games I love though.
Man, Game Boy Advance is also my childhood. That's a good question.
Man. Okay,
let's see. You pick a new one.
Okay, let's see. It's getting late, guys. I actually think we need to kind of roll through this. I hate to say that, but we really do. What are your thoughts on Shenmue 3 release date being virtually a year ahead of the time that they will hit?
I don't really like Shenmue.
I don't love Shenmue either.
I
think it's cool. I think it's cool, and what it was trying to do for gaming is interesting. It was trying to make real world happen in the gaming, which at the time of Dreamcast that had been unseen and undone.
Yeah.
So that was cool, and I think its impact on gaming is cool. But I think it's interesting that they're doing it, that they're calling it a year out, because I still feel like they're going to end up delaying it.
Yeah.
Somewhere inside of me, I just still feel like the game looks too rough.
It's one of those that I didn't grow up with. I didn't play when I was younger.
So your
It's something
reverence
I don't have,
doesn't matter?
Yeah, I don't have any kind of attachment to those games at all.
Next one.
Let's see. Legend of Dragoon was 4 disc of pure joy and controversial option. Blue or opinion? Noonie Bird, you said option, but I know you mean opinion. Blue Final Fantasy VII Out of the Water. What are your favorite multi-disc PS games? Thanks to Mr. Noonie Bird, one of our good buddies over there on Twitter.
This is a Patreon question I kept forgetting about.
Oh, really?
I felt so bad about it.
I'm going to be the contrarian to his answer. I'm going to say Final Fantasy VII because if I didn't, it would be Legends of Dragoon because those are the only 2 games I had on PS1 that were
multi-disc.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, Final Fantasy 9.
Did not want to play 9 or 8.
Oh.
Even though 8, I know I'm never going to replay 8 because 8 was trash.
You take that back.
No, I have downloaded when they did the remaster.
9's good. Don't get me wrong, 8's a very controversial game, and I get why it's so hit or miss with people. 9's a super solid game because it's traditional Final Fantasy, which had not been done for a while at that point.
Yeah.
I like 9 more than 7 by far. I thought Legend of Dragoon was cooler than 7. 7's got a lot of cool, but it's got a lot of bad. 8's got stuff I liked more than 7 as
had
well.
The cool card game, and it had Zill,
Very
which was a cool
cool.
character.
Yeah.
And Laguna, who was also a cool character. That's
Think of other cool multi-disc games that were on that system that were just like really big loves for me, because it's so weird. You replay games later in life and you forget that they were multi-disc. Like was Dino Crisis multi-disc? I don't think so.
No, I'm pretty sure Chase had Dino Crisis, and I don't remember that being multi-disc because you remember by the thickness of the case.
Yeah, of the case. But I always played games secondhand. I didn't have the case for most games.
Kept them in like a CD wallet.
I had to.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, no, I didn't get most games in a case.
In poverty.
Yeah, very much so. That's what I'm trying to think of. Like some of these games, I'm trying to recall when you get through, and it's like this is the end of disc one. Yeah, it's like switch disc.
Well, what out of the ones do you remember is the best?
Because I'm really trying to think, dude. Because a lot of them are Final Fantasy.
Right.
I mean, don't get me wrong. The Final Fantasy 9 is definitely one.
Because 6 was not on multiple disc.
I don't think so. 6 was on one.
Because 6 would be my answer.
Final Fantasy 7 was multiple discs, though. Great, obviously. Man, it was all JRPGs. I mean, what like
oh man, what's the name of that series? Blue Hair. Yeah. It was on PS1.
Oh, Chrono Cross was multi-disc.
Did he have blue hair?
I mean, we just talked about Chrono Cross. Look, my boy.
Yeah, that is it. Wow, I cannot believe I registered the box art before.
It was only 2 discs, but no, Chrono Cross was awesome. That's a perfect example. Again, forgot that it was 2 discs. Yeah, I've most recently played it on PS3 where I don't have to worry about disc.
Right, and see, I remember the box art, but I didn't remember.
Yep. No.
Oh no, that's actually not the game I'm thinking of.
Oh really?
Legend of Legaia.
Oh yes. Hold on, there's another one. Was Ark the Lad multi-disc?
No, Ark the Lad also had blonde hair.
And I know I'm not blue hair. I'm just talking about on PS1. Was it a multi-disc game?
But yeah, Chase rented that Legend game for a weekend, and we played it at his house when we spent the night. It was real fun. Nothing I remember a lot of, but I remember having a lot of fun. Kind of like the original Dragon Quest game.
Yeah,
Dragon Warriors.
Look at that. Multi-disc. Ark the Lads is another. See, it's so crazy thinking about that. That was the collection, though, to be fair. Yeah. Ark the Lad was a cool series. I never played the second one. I talked about that with, I think RJ was the one we were talking about that. Parasite Eve. Thank you. I told you, it's all JRPGs, man. It's things I'm not thinking about.
So what is your favorite?
Oh, favorite Legends Dragoon. I'll go there.
Okay, you'll go there. I'll go Final Fantasy 7.
Legends Dragoon's cool. That's why I want Legends Dragoon to come back around. I think it'd be a super cool remake. And it'd be weird because it's got a very particular art style to it
and battle style. Yeah, but
I think
the battle style's been done since it's come out, which is weird because it was one of the first that did that of its.
Well,
kind.
sure, yeah, sure.
Alchibi comes back with a good question saying, "What do you guys think about the night daytime cycles in games? Which games did it best? Which games do you want to implement in a better way? Horizon, maybe. The best game that comes to my mind is Dying Light with its crazy zombies during the night."
And that seems to be getting crazier with Dying Light too. Dying Light cycles are weird. I think some games do it well. Some games do it to where it's almost an annoyance. And it depends on how much of a sim you like. Because it's like, well, you can't hunt this because it's only out at this time of night. It's like, oh.
I'm going to be a weird, cheeky person, but I'm going to be 100% honest. Animal Crossing.
Okay.
No, it is literally the day and night. Yeah, of what your time is.
That's actually a good answer.
It's really cool to know that, like, if I'm playing a game at 9 p.m., it's dark in the city. It's to know that, like, if I start a game up, it gives you this weird sense of urgency of like, oh, it's 9 o'clock. My shop's closing in like 2 minutes. I gotta go in there and go to Nook Shop and buy everything I need.
It also gives you the thing where it's the mental reminder in your head, like, if I don't get on to water my flowers today, they'll die.
Yep.
Like,
it's
because you're actually thinking about the fact that it's in real time.
Exactly. So
that's a great answer. I'm gonna stick with that. I'm not even as big of a fan.
Yeah, it's one of the ones that did it the best.
Real quick, Stonage says Xenoblade Chronicles 2 did it so good, different enemies and nice night effects in the environment.
Minecraft.
Yes, actually, great. That's the perfect answer.
I'll never forget the first time, dude, I played Minecraft.
It's dark, and you're like, what the?
No, dude, it was at Gavin's house, and we were in the little tutorial area, the very beginning one, if you remember correctly. It's like it's fenced off, but it's nowhere near as fancy as it is now. And it did not give you much. It was literally that area, and you would go through the doors, and you're done with the tutorial. But I dug straight down, and I fell into a cave. And it was dark in there, and I heard nothing but zombies. We didn't know what that was. We didn't know there was enemies in the game. Dude, we almost crapped our pants. And I was probably like 17. No, I was like 18 or 19 when Minecraft came out, but we were just sitting there yelling at the screen.
Bethesda games on the day and night cycle thing are interesting too.
Oh yeah,
definitely worth a mention. They all actually have a day and night cycle that the game follows and that the NPCs pay attention to. Go back inside, and the Witcher 3 is mentioned in the chat as well from World End, talking about the NPCs go back inside of their houses at night, which is something that Bethesda games.
Isn't there like a really special monster in Witcher 3 that only spawns at night?
Yeah, I think so.
Like a cow king or something.
I don't remember what it is, to be honest.
Sure.
I think I'm going to go back and replay that game when I get a dead moment where I can. Let's see. Next question. What's your most wished-for portable Vita Switch ports? Switch is my go-to handheld RPG machine these days, and I find myself just wanting retro games. Knights of the Old Republic, PS1 library, specifically Squaresoft titles such as Final Fantasy VII, Xenogears, Parasite Eve, etc., and so on. So, Saul, what are your most wished-for ports of games that you really wish you had on a handheld, be it Vita, Switch, or whatever
I would say
handheld
Final
you want?
Fantasy 7 and 6 for the Switch.
7's probably not going to happen.
No. This is wished. This is not what I know is coming.
That's a good. Okay, yeah.
So yeah, Final Fantasy 6 and 7 for sure. Final Fantasy Tactics War of the Lions for sure. Tactics
dude.
Ogre.
War of the Lions. I'm so glad it's playable on Vita.
Yeah. And that's one of the games
I'm glad it got given out free too.
That's one of those games I'm going to get whenever I beat you. For Poets. But let's see. 6, 7 Tactics Ogre.
Dude, Tactics Ogre Let Us Cling Together. Did you actually play that game?
Yes.
Oh, it's so good. Yes.
Man, what else was there?
See, look, a lot of them already happened, right? I like the Disgaea games, but the Disgaea games are cooler to me on handheld.
Switch. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Disgaea
and
5.
that's what I'm saying. They already exist on the systems I'd want them on. Even though I don't think Disgaea 5's on Vita, but that's okay.
Death Gambit. Death Gambit on Switch would be amazing.
Yes. Death Gambit, Dead Cells on Vita is definitely one of those. I think that Dead Cells would be a game I'd play every single night if I could play it on Vita and put it down.
Yeah, this thing comes attached you in The Witcher if you meet certain requirements at night. I don't know if you've ever seen that thing before.
Yeah, I do. I do remember that thing. I can't remember. It's not actually called the cow thing. I can't remember what it's called though.
Yeah. Chort.
Oh, that actually right there. That's when you kill too many. That's the cow police, where if you kill too many classes, the bovine defense force.
What?
I forgot about that.
That thing was terrifying.
Yeah, people were farming the cows because there was basically a loop that you could do where you get a bunch of money for killing cows and selling their skin, or something like that. I never actually did it. And the update that they added, instead of patching it out, they added the bovine defense force, where if you do it too much, this thing comes and kills you.
Oh my gosh.
Which is an incredibly funny way to handle a problem like that. Man. Okay, well, hold on. What was the question?
Wished.
That's a good answer. I always wanted a game like Skyrim or a Bethesda RPG in the Elder Scrolls series on PSP or Vita. Sad that it never happened. It just is what it is. That's definitely one of them. Other than that, I think we're good. Gravity Rush 2 on Vita would have felt very at home, and Guacamelee 2 on Vita would have felt very home. I'm still having problems of trying to play Guacamelee 1 by my instincts to play it like it was on Vita. It's kind of bothering me here and there. I noticed when I was playing last night, I was like, why do I feel like my hands are cumbersome right now? It's because I'm so used to playing this focused in my hands.
Weird.
So that's one of them.
Let's see. With so many games coming out the past few years, specifically September to November, early December, and as part of the past few years trickling into January and March, how long until AAA releases are all year? We have had a small lull since E3. Mr. Josh, we need to talk about this.
He said,
I don't know what you're saying.
Hold on.
I didn't look at this before I put it
With
in.
so many games coming out the past few years, specifically September to November, early December, he's saying that it's a time frame, and as of the past few years, trickling into January through March, how long until AAA releases are all year long? We've had a small lull since E3 this year.
I don't know. I don't want them to be all year long.
We've talked about this before.
The summer drought is
There's
nice.
almost a weird importance to a drought.
Yes.
You need time to digest on things that you've gotten backlogged on,
Yep.
and that you've started playing and have been playing weaved in with other games, which I try not to do because it bothers me immensely. But you need it. You need that. Like we talked about yesterday on the episode when we did it, or whatever it was, Saturday. We talked about the fact that I like there to be just enough holes that you have like moments to come up and breathe and like catch your breath, figure out what games you got, knock a couple out that you've been really wanting to play, and then go back in and still feel like you're getting to keep up with the schedule.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. I don't think that we'll ever
Droughts
see it
are very
happen.
important.
I'm surprised that the summer drought is where things happen instead of people releasing stuff in summer. But I guess you want the summer drought to get people who were too busy during the school year, definitely kids, to come and buy your games during the summer, and you see a sales resurgence in the summer potentially.
Exactly.
I'm not sure. That's a good question.
Yeah. And it all works out, I think.
Last one from our man Dan says, too late to the party again, but I wanted to bring up games that have aged well on previous gens. Everything pre-PS1 still holds up. 2D sprite art will never age. Thank you. PS1 through PS3, 3D games with exceptions are a very mixed bag. It's why I hope they don't do an N64 Mini. I still play my PS2 and 3 regularly, and there's a definite progress. However, they're clearly last gen, even The Last of Us, but maybe that's to do with the 30 frames per second cap. Do you see us looking back on the PS4 similarly? If so, what else can they do aside from frame rate and resolution to improve? So I guess my question is, in 6 years, will we look back on this gen and be able to identify it as last gen? If so, what technological progress between now and then can we improve visuals that much?
This is a almost impossible question to answer, because in 6 years, think 6 years ago.
Well, sure. And now 6 years from now is probably heartily into the next generation, right?
Yes.
So you're into the next generation to the point where you're really seeing what these machines can do.
Yeah, physics, better AI.
Exactly.
It's the mechanics of the games that are becoming
the
better
way
and
the
better.
games are going to feel,
Yeah.
which I guess is technically what he's talking about with PS3. You know, when you get once they moved into this 3D realm, games started to feel clunky, but they were still fun and excited to be in this 3D realm. And then what did we do with that? Now that we're in the 3D realm and we broke that, we had to make the 3D realm feel better.
Yeah.
And we did that by eventually adding cameras that you can completely control on your own.
Better world building.
Physics that make the things that are happening in that world seem more believable. And that's going to continue to just go on. Now, the thing is that you eventually get diminishing returns. And that's a problem with all consoles, is that eventually you're pushing everything to that nth degree. A lot of what I say is going to push, and what this generation did push from last generation, is particle effects and stuff that makes it really feel like you're in an area. Not that's just an area that's incredibly detailed, but there's nothing going on in the area. Like you don't see the way that light flashes through dust. That was a problem in last gen. You could get a very detailed world, but they were typically like one of the best examples of particle effects I can remember last generation, and a game that a lot of people were kind of mad about because of the fact that it went more action. But Dead Space 3 looked fantastic in certain areas because of the way that they had lights going through certain particles as they were moving through. It looks beautiful, and I really think Dead Space 3 would look like a current gen game if it was given a remaster treatment. It's a very pretty game.
Yeah. I am really curious to see how NPCs, like, if you think 6 years ago to Grand Theft Auto, I know it wasn't quite 6 years ago, but let's just say Grand Theft Auto 4 to Grand Theft Auto 5, just from the NPC interactions you have, are nuts. And if you think back further than that, if you think from, say, Grand Theft Auto 4 to Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, the difference there is also strikingly nuts. Mm-hmm. So I am very, very curious as to what we're going to see in 6 years. And I think that what it is going to be, I think in 6 years, pretty much 4K 60 is going to be the thing. I think that that's enough time for technology to go through and make it affordable and make it reasonable on consoles to have.
Here's an interesting flip to that, though. Everybody says that, and I do agree with the ability to have that. I also think that what I would like to see is frame rate options, and I mean that, and that gets hard, right?
No,
I don't want to play every single game 60 frames per second if I choose not to. I think
that's going to be a problem you're going to run into, though.
It might be, and I don't want that, because here's the thing. On PC, I can tell it, cap me off at 30 if I want to. And it depends on what you want. Here's the thing, and it depends on what the game is trying to do. A game like The Order, I think, would be responsive enough and look really cool playing it in 24 frames per second, which sounds crazy, right? But that's film frame rate.
I know.
And I think it'd be potential for that to still feel good and feel like it should have, because it's a game that's a little slower paced. Whereas something like Call of Duty that's very fast, you want that 60 frames, or at least like in the upper 40s.
I'm still one of those firm believers that, like, the frame rate to me does not impact the amount of
he said the same thing. And this is not necessarily what I'm getting at with it, but I do like that this is one of the other sides of it. He wants to be able to pick graphics over frame rate and resolution.
Right. And I get that, but like,
which we have now.
Yeah, for me,
to an extent,
frame rate has never impacted story. Like, if a game was, I never looked at a game and thought that, oh, I wish it was 30 frames per second, that'd be better.
I don't know, because not enough games are 60 frames per second for me to really know that.
Oh, there are, though. There's a lot of games out now that, like, we've played, like, recently. Like,
well, no. I get that they're there, but okay, like a perfect example, right? I actually, Hellblade played better, 60 frames per second, looked far more immersive to me in 30 frames per second.
I guess more immersive, yeah, maybe.
Well, what I mean is, like, everything felt more present and real. Whereas when I went to 60 frames per second, I only saw and the thing is, the game's not only combat.
Right. I know that, but like
in the puzzle solving moments, the game looked so much more enticing and pulling in 30 frames per second.
More realistic to you?
No, because here's the thing. First of all, 60 frames is not about the way it looks when it's moving as much as it's about the way it feels with your hand-eye reaction.
I mean, yeah, but like when you're painting a camera around in 60 versus 30, does that not look more realistic?
No.
How?
And partially because the game, and that's why I say common technology is the problem with that. And Hellblade being the perfect example, there was a lot more jaggies everywhere, moving everything. The game looked notably worse in 60 frames per second, but it felt better.
You're just it's literally it's the frames you're moving at is just doubled. Everything else is the same.
No,
right?
no, not in Hellblade. Did you not
Unless
have a Pro
they-
at the time?
No, I did, but I'm just saying, like, I don't have a 4K TV, so was it 4K 60 frames or 4K? Like, what? Like, was it 4K 30 versus?
It wasn't
1080p?
4K, but it was upped.
So
but
that's
then
right. That's
I could
right.
probably show you, man. Dude, there's
But-
a noticeable difference. The game went from being
with-
very crisp and like
But without
luscious
that,
looking.
though. But without that, though.
Now, if that's gone, I don't know. That's one thing I haven't
See,
experienced.
yeah,
That. I
that's-
need that experience before I can clearly say that that's true. But here's the thing. That being able to push, because I care more about stories and what's going on, and I do care about combat, but if combat's good enough at 30 frames for me, it's going to change per game. I would want a game like Nier and very action-heavy games, like fighting games too.
All be
I
60.
want those to be 60
But see,
frames per second because there's a clear advantage there.
The only issue I
A game like
foresee-
Uncharted, I don't see the need for 60 frames per second in the story. I played The Last of Us 60 frames per second. I did not enjoy it anymore.
But I foresee that 60 frames is going to become the next standard. So, like, I really hope for your sake and everybody, and even World End's sake, for those that like 30 better, I hope for y'all's sake that you.
I don't want to say I like it better. I like the option to where if I play a game at 60 and I'm like, this ain't doing it for me, that I can pull back.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying, like, I don't think it's not going to go to 60 as a standard. Like, that's just the way technology. That's where we're going to move up. And
Well, people
eventually
thought
it'll
that
be-
was going to be this gen 60 frames per second standard, and it didn't happen.
It's not a standard, but it's a chunk of games now. Like
Not-
Dark Souls 3.
Not even half games. Dark Souls 3 is 30 frames per second.
No, it is not.
Oh, Pro, it updated. See, but that's the mixture. We are playing
that's
on
where
the
the
Pro.
gray
That's a
area,
good point.
That's where the gray area comes from. Is that most of the games for us, Dead Cells, 60 frames per second.
Yeah.
Death's Gambit, I don't know. I think 60.
Now here's the thing:
feels 60.
Bloodborne and Dark Souls.
Frame pacing issues.
Bloodborne and Dark Souls. I don't need 60 frames per second.
Oh no, I definitely do.
Yeah, I don't.
I will argue. That's why I almost did the Let's Play on PCs because it was so much better. Until
They did the Pro update.
They did the Pro update.
Yeah.
And I'm glad they did that because I actually, on a last minute whim, decided to do PS4 and realized I'm going to do this for the trophies.
Dead Cells, yes. I
Yeah.
need that 60 frames per second.
that's
But that
what I'm
game's
saying,
very quick in the way
is-
I play it.
But I don't foresee like the amount of here's a better way. The amount of games that you're going to play with a more heavy action-based game, we'll compare Nier to Order. You're going to play more games like Nier than you're going to play games like Order. So
Yeah,
the standard
that's
of
a good
60
point. That's a good point.
So the standard of 60 would work better in today's gaming world, unless games like the Order are going to put in a frame rate cap.
Or the ability. Again, that's all I really want.
Oh, that's just an option to flip the frame rate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or
Because
do a
here's-
resolution
here's-
mode that
here's
like
my
Neo and
If they updated the
What else did
order,
it? Yeah.
if they updated the order to be PS4 Pro compatible, it's not going to happen. But if they did it, and they went through the trouble to do that, and they gave you the option to go some form of checkerboard 4K or whatever they did, or upscale to 4K from 1440 or whatever they chose to do, and keep it 30 frames per second, I would do that. And the reason I would do that is because that game, more of why I like that game so much is that yes, the combat's fun, but it's not needing 60 frames per second because of what it is. And it's more about the reason I love that game so much is the immersion of the world, the immersion of the characters. And that would be noticeably altered if I went towards 60 frames per second and dropped quality to try and hit that.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to drop quality though. I think that's the thing is that
As long as technology can get to a point
it
where
is
it won't,
there. It is there.
but it's
literally.
always going to happen.
It's there not right now. Like,
It's always
just-
gonna
We're just
happen.
on old hardware. When new hardware comes out, that will be a hit without a doubt.
Sure, it'll be able to, but
it will be. That
it's
will-
all going to be about how the developers choose to.
Mark my words now. The next first party Sony game coming out on PS5 will be 60 frames, 1080p.
Whew.
Or even what World End is saying, it was
20
unlocked frames per second.
Sure, well, okay, they did that on PS3 anyway, on PS4 with Infamous, but it was having it was
had
only getting
drops.
into like 40s and 43s,
Yeah, and that's where he says, but even unlocked FPS is so much better, even if it's not 60, 100%.
I did not like it better in Infamous because it was too wild.
I'll say-
I had to cap it.
Well, I'll say I will agree
Whenever they
until there
finally
is frame
updated it.
until there's
Sorry.
frame tearing.
There was no frame tearing, but it was just. I don't know if I'd call it frame pacing. I don't actually know the word, but it would change frame rate so much
That it was stuttering.
I felt it.
Yeah, that is when
There was no visual stutter
Right.
that I could tell, but I felt it, and I didn't like it.
I would prefer. I would almost prefer a locked.
I want a
frame rate.
locked frame rate before. So if I
over
got the
that.
option to do 30 frames per second locked or unlocked, but only hitting around high 30s to somewhere in the 60s, and it wildly differs. No,
Yeah,
give me
you
30.
lock that down. Yeah,
Give me 30. I don't care. But there will always be. Here's the thing: when you optimize a game, there will always be the thing where they push between this thing where it's like So like Sony's first party, right? They're known because like we were talking about what can you do, right? One of the other things you can do, animations. Right, we're seeing that with The Last of Us 2.
Even ray
the
tracing
animations are
seen,
ridiculous,
and stuff like ray tracing and light and shadow that you've seen now.
Yeah, we'll see though, because apparently Shadow of the Tomb Raider is using ray tracing and it looks hideous. But that may be compression and stuff that we're not seeing, or maybe I'm misunderstanding what I read. But regardless, what I was getting into,
it's not like those RTX cards, boy.
What I was getting into is that when a developer makes a game, they're pushing. Sony's not worried about hitting the 60 frames per second cap. What Sony's more talking about, but they're worried about giving the option, which is what we've gotten with God of War. What we've gotten with a lot of
the option, that's a more than.
But what they are more worried about when they're thinking about is looking like they're on top. And here's the thing: we've talked about it. Xbox One X may be the most powerful console, but there's not a single game on the Xbox One X that looks like Horizon or God of War. What they're worried about with those games is making a 30 frames per second solidly hitting that doesn't drop experience that looks so breathtakingly gorgeous.
Isn't Sunset Overdrive 60?
No, I don't think so.
That's a shame.
It may be.
That kind of game should be.
Yeah.
World End also says God of War unlocked frame rate versus locked at 30 at 4K feels like I'm unshackled. And if what you're saying is what I think, then I am the same way. I would rather play at 1080p a higher frame rate than 4K lower. And I've said that multiple times, 100 times.
Now, God of War may look great, but God of War, there's actually a couple of things that pull me out. I didn't, because I didn't feel the need to. I went into the game, was like, let me see how it plays at 30, and if I feel fine, I'm going to keep it there. My thing is, like, if I don't feel unless I feel a need to go to 60, I don't need to do it. In those types of games.
I will always like.
But if some 60, games, I don't even want the option to be off, right? Because like Uncharted 4, the story's in 30 and the multiplayer's in 60. The game does not feel better to me in 60 enough to where I would care that if they gave me the option to put it on 60, I wouldn't change it because I don't feel the need. Some games do have that need. I would not play Nier Automata at 30 frames per second if I could keep from it. When I went back and played Nier, because it's at 30 frames per second, it's noticeable.
Right, and that's where.
And it's not even nearly as fast paced of a game, but there are moments. Yeah.
That's where we're different a little bit. Where I would just prefer 60 no matter what I'm playing, because no matter
I prefer the option, which I think is what we're going to get because we're getting it now.
Yeah, the frame rate to me won't impact the cinematic of the story of any kind. Like to me it just looks better. It plays better.
Well, the reason I go into that too, right, is because it wouldn't matter as much if games were still doing cutscenes that were off. But now games are, and I like that they're doing this, but they're like God of War. All of the cutscenes are in the engine in game, so whatever you have it set to, or what you're going to see the cutscenes at. I like the cutscenes to be as pristine as they can. But if there was a way for them to find a way, but it would feel weird
like
to
30
you.
frames per second cutscenes versus 60.
But that'd be super weird if you're playing it and that's what I'm saying. But it would look best.
I just don't have a problem with 60 frames per second thumbnails.
It still depends on the game.
Screens.
Because I'm telling you, I did. Because whenever I replayed Hellblade to go back and get that one thing I missed, I played it all in 60 frames per second.
Yeah.
Played way better. Looked significantly worse.
Well, I think that's just because you're playing it up to checkerboard, right? Like you're not playing it at 1080p like I was.
Yeah, no, I was playing on a 4K with all that stuff.
That's wild, it's almost triple at that point, I guess. Well, triple would be pretty much the right resolution, right? Because if it's doubled, it's 1440.
He says he wants pre-rendered cutscenes back. Let's roll in. That's interesting because I do like what God of War did with one camera pull and always making every moment feel like it was seamlessly transitioning. That was incredibly cool, and it's something I didn't even realize I wanted as much as I did until I really got given it.
I don't want pre-rendered cutscenes back just because they're striking against.
That's also something that Hellblade did, though. To be fair,
yeah. I mean, don't you think they're more striking against motion capture in non-rendered cutscenes?
What do you mean?
Like there's a striking difference
between what you say motion capture.
Yes.
I guess.
How do you cut this?
I don't know. I don't know what you're doing.
I was just okay. Whatever.
Anyway, I guess I don't know what you mean. What do you mean by using? What do you mean,
Sorry,
like
guys.
Using?
So if a cutscene's pre-rendered and then the rest of the game is not, does that not throw you off?
Oh, it depends because a pre-rendered cutscene can still be motion captured.
I know that, but I'm just saying if the rest of the game is not motion captured.
Well, I guess I don't know of an example where the cutscene was motion captured, but the rest of the game wasn't.
What about the game that is motion captured?
Well, when I say that, most games have some form of keyframe animation.
Yeah.
But they still have a lot of motion capture to fill in the gaps.
Now, what he said, not in God of War, but you could do so much with pre-rendered cutscenes that you can have even better graphics, better animations. That's true. I would rather play a cinematic.
Seamlessness is interesting, and I think again that's one of the things that's hard to put options in.
Yeah, and see, this is like Kiki says, I'd rather play a cinematic game based at 30 frames per second with high resolution than a more action-based game at 60 frames. I think
that's exactly where I'm at.
But the problem here is that you're comparing a cinematic game versus an action-based game. what is like? I don't understand.
Well, it's not a problem. I mean, it's what I'm saying. Some games we're already getting this gen.
But I'm just talking about like what I'm trying to say is that the cinematic games are going to be at 60 frames and a higher resolution. Is it a big deal for people to not have the 30 frames per second over the higher resolution?
Well, by nature of what you're doing, you're going to give up some resolution and some kind of power that goes overhead somewhere.
I hate
to get 60 frames per second.
I hate to be this.
So if I want to be highly cinematic and I want to be push that graphical boundary as hard as you possibly can, because that's what this game is really focused on, then I should be able to say 30 frames per second and use the rest of that stuff that I'm not using in the 60 frames per second to push that as far as you can.
I hate to be this person though, but have you noticed that only PlayStation fans say this?
Well, not necessarily.
I have never once seen an Xbox person say they prefer 30 for more cinematic.
Well, also,
it might be because they have nothing cinematic.
What cinematic game besides?
But PC players
sadly,
certainly don't say that.
PC players, that's because again, we're talking about communities you can hear from. To be honest, I've never heard a Sony fan, but I don't frequent enough things. I've never heard Sony people say they want 30 frames per second. I'm a Sony person, and I just said it. And Kiki did, but he also didn't say he wants only that. He's saying a very specific game.
That's why I asked him.
That's
why I asked him. Yeah. That's why I was asking if you would rather, and a higher field of view is also what I want.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah. Adjustable field of view.
Yeah, I would say adjustable. Yeah, because I know not everybody likes 90 or 60. I think is the base now, and 120 is the max, if I'm correct, or it might be 90 is the max. But yeah,
I mean. I want to see where you're going with that Sony thing real quick, because I mean,
I've never once seen a Microsoft fan say they would prefer 30 or 60 frames over 30.
Okay, so I'm going to give you like a serious, true answer for myself that this is all based off of me. I played Quantum Break on PC.
Right.
All right. Quantum Break, first of all, not near as good of a looking game as it should have been.
No.
It had a lot of problems with like
the mocap was weird.
Well, it had like things they used as like post processing added a lot of weird effects. So I was playing on a graphics card that could handle everything. I went in and turned that game to 30 frames per second because I was playing it, and the way that game is and the way it handles everything, I did not feel a noticeable difference that made 60 frames per second worth it in terms of what I wanted, which is the game is highly cinematic. It's one of the only Xbox games I can think of that are highly cinematic in the same vein as what you'd expect from like a Naughty Dog game. And I, even on a PC that could handle 60, I went back and went to 30. Another example of a game I did that on, because it's a game that is not fast-paced enough for me to feel the difference. Tomb Raider, whenever I played Rise of the Tomb Raider on my computer, I ended up going up in the graphical settings because the game...
I was there. I watched you play at 4K, but it was 30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it. And I went to 1440, 60, and I could play it. But I was like,
It just seems like out of every fan base in any console history,
and
nobody has used cinematic 30 frames per second as a thing, as an argument over 60 frames, except the PlayStation community. And I don't know if that's something that everybody's aware of that I'm not aware of or something like.
And I'm still, so he's saying, and World Den saying, I would never pick 30 over 60 if the graphics are the same. That's probably true for me too, but there's not an experience I've seen that's true of because of the way games are optimized.
Right.
To give you that 60, they're having to pull back somewhere else.
And that's what I'm hoping for.
If they can ever but you can't. The games are.
No,
the games are going to be optimized in such a way that when you go to 60, there's no way with the way that processing power works. You only have so much, and if you cannot have a game that will look the exact same as it does at 30 frames per second 4K as it would at 4K 60.
The standard of it playing at 1080p 60.
Well, 1080p maybe, but you said 4K 60 is going to be this new standard, and that's not. If you're at 4K,
not for next gen.
Oh, you're saying the next gen past that?
No, I'm saying in 6 years.
Okay, but that's technically next gen. That's well into the next gen.
We don't know that though. That next gen could have the mid cycle like the Pro and have this. That's my prediction in 6 years. Because 6 years
that's not a standard at that point then. So still the standard for this generation is 1080-30, and that's still not even getting hit.
For this generation.
And even with the PS4 Pro,
6 years
it's still 1080-30 because the Pro is not a new generation. It's just a small iteration that some people are hopping into.
Right.
And that's why I say the generation standard is 1080-30.
Right.
And we're not even hitting that across the board, but it's the most hit number that we see.
Right. And I know, and to get back what I was saying is that 6 years ago, you would not have believed if I told you there was going to be PS4 that could hit 4K.
Yeah. I'm just saying that the world in which he talks about, which is if the graphics would be the exact same regardless, which is not going to happen unless you purposely go in and limit the game somewhere.
Right. Which is possible, but it's not the.
But
it's not the common.
It's definitely not going to happen in exclusives where they're trying to push this envelope to look, which is definitely something that Sony's aware of and trying to do.
Yeah.
With their developers, they want to push that graphical envelope and that immersion envelope. And people say different things about immersion, and there is something about seeing something on screen that looks so crisp and so beautiful that you almost feel like you could reach out and touch it. That's a weird thing, and I like it in games that are trying to be cinematic. Games that are not trying to be cinematic, I don't care. Guacamelee has an art style that it sticks to, and because of that, it can play at 30 or 60, no problem, and it wouldn't change anything. And I would choose 60 in that situation because the graphics would be the same. But that's not what you're going to see in a high-level game. And a high-level game is trying to push everything to its boundary. Something has to give. So I can never say that, oh, yeah, I can choose 60 frames per second because it won't affect the graphics. It will have.
Yeah, for this gen, for sure. That's what I'm saying by next gen. Because, I mean, think about it.
You still only have so much processing power when
you're talking about one thing. I'm talking about another. I'm talking about the standard of being 60 frames, not both. Not being able to do both at the same resolution. That's not going to happen for a while now. That's not.
Well, yeah, but I'm not saying that. I'm saying that if you do it that way, it doesn't matter. So even if I'm doing 60 frames locked, but I'm on 1080p, well, I have a 4K TV, and when I play 1080p content on it, I see a slightly noticeable thing because you're trying to stretch an image to fit this 4K. Partially it's because I wouldn't say it's a mistake, but I adopted into 4K. So now since I'm there, whatever comes next, since we already have a Pro which is kind of hitting it, and we have the Xbox One X that's hitting it even more, I want the next generation to be able to do something for that 4K.
And I'm sure they will, but
when I'm working on 4K as my baseline resolution at that point, right? And if that's now their baseline resolution, and I can go, okay, since this is our resolution that we're hitting on, and maybe we can say that the baseline resolution goes down to like 1440p or 1800p, whatever, but it's not going to happen that way.
Yeah.
Let's just call baseline to 4K, even though they're probably going to be that powerful. But look, 4K, right? And then they go, okay, so you have 4K 30 and 4K 60. Games that are 4K 60 may happen. They're action games that are oriented for it, and they do a lot of tricks to make sure that it keeps that 60 frames per second up. It's optimized to make sure the game fits that style the most. If I go to a cinematic game, it doesn't matter what's going to happen. I'm going to pull power from somewhere because it doesn't matter what kind of game you're making.
That's if the game has that option.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. But no matter what game you're making, unless you're putting a false limitation somewhere to keep it from going further, then you're not going to have the same graphical output just with a different frames per second. So it's never going to matter.
Right.
In that sense.
That's what I was getting at in the kind of the beginning is that with what we have now, 1080p 60 is the standard, and 4K 30, 4K 60 will be the minority. As you said, you had early adopted it. There are more people with 1080p TVs than 4Ks.
Yes, and that's still going to be true going in the next generation, though it's still shifting. Well, I'm curious to see what Christmas this year looks like.
2 years from now, I think 4K will be the standard easily. There will be 6K and 8K, which
8K is already getting ready to go on the market.
PS5 mid-gen cycle will be able to hit. But to end this, Kiki says, I think next gen will have 4K and 60 frames per second as a standard, since I feel that's why the Pro and the Xbox are testing at this moment. Late next gen after a mid-console refresh for sure. No way at launch. No way. Without sacrificing a lot, too much. I'm not going to say a lot. I'm just going to say too much.
It depends on who you have working on what. I think first parties will do a lot. I think first parties you have to lean on the most. Xbox's first party, since they're buying up certain studios.
He says that's a standard.
Yeah. So a standard across. So I'm gonna break standard into two things. I think you'll have an exclusive standard, and I think you'll have a third party standard. And I don't think the third party standard will be 4K 60.
It's 4K. No, it'll be 1080p 60 for certain.
As the baseline, I think that there's a chance that 4K 30 is hit next gen as a baseline.
Of course,
for most games.
and it's more affordable. At a more affordable price point than right now, too.
But it also may not happen because people aren't actually playing on 4K screens. So whatever next system still have to have some kind of super sampling to try and make it worth it for people who have smaller TVs.
Right.
Or you know what I mean? Smaller pixel.
Yeah, which is why I was curious
TVs.
about the Pro impacting what the PS5 will be.
I don't know. This is interesting. So, I mean, there's plenty of things that can be done to make the games look better. I don't think that we'll look back on this gen as... I think you'll look back on late this generation as...
I don't think I'll be as impressed as I look back on late last generation. You look back on late last gen, you see The Last of Us and stuff like that. I'm more impressed with games like that than I will be this generation.
Dude, Ghost of Tsushima?
I don't know yet.
With what
Does
they
it play? Does it
dude,
play good?
with what they showed,
Until I get my hands on these games.
sure. But from what they showed, if we're just talking about from a, he's talking about the way games look and feel.
Right.
Feel we can't do, but we can definitely say look.
Just like Spider-Man.
Dude,
Until I
Ghost
get
of
my hands on
Tsushima is
Spider-Man.
blowing my mind. But again, E3, weird things. If Ghost of Tsushima comes out looking anything close to what it did on stage when they just showed it, dude, we were both like, this is a PS5 game.
Yeah. No, people still think that.
It looks ridiculous.
And that's the thing is that, but I will say though, from what the jump was made from last year from last gen, from beginning to the end, is a lot bigger of a jump than from this generation to the end, at least in my eyes. But that's been it, you guys. Thank you all so much for tuning in for Reader Mail. This has been a long episode. I think we're going to do some dinner.
Yeah, we need to eat.
I'm hungry. And don't forget to follow us on Triangle SQRD over there on Twitter.
Or on Facebook. Facebook is the Triangle Squared podcast group. Or if you want to come join a Discord, we'll have it down below. You can find us on Patreon if you'd like to support us on there. We're about to have a screen that shows up showing all of our patrons. And we appreciate you guys massively. And
we thank all the regular people too.
Yeah, thanks for everybody coming in and joining us. This was a very last minute thing. And we'll still talk on some of this. We'll probably carry some of these conversations over to the Discord since we know that's where you are. But until next time, this has been Triangle Squared. Thanks.
Thank you, guys.